Chapter 2176. The current Jade City was no longer the Jade City of the past. Ever since Xia Zhitong angered the old city lord to death and young Master Yu committed suicide, the entire Jade City was under her control. It had become a luxurious place filled with power and sex. The entire Jade City was brightly lit regardless of whether it was day or night. Every lake in the city had a flower boat, every street and every manor had a hidden spring scenery. Originally, Jade City had been a very ordinary city on the Bifrost Bridge. The Yu family had managed the bark of the mother tree to maintain the city's existence, but Xia Zhitong's rise to power had changed the atmosphere of the city. Jade City was now famous even in the top realm, let alone the middle realm. Countless people flocked to the city and it had almost doubled in size. Xia Zhitong's gigolos had more than doubled in size as well. They spent their days immersed in wine and women and the city was filled with laughter. When Lu Yin walked into Jade City he almost couldn't believe his eyes. "This place is bustling," he exclaimed. There were people everywhere and the restaurants on both sides were filled with laughter. This place was even more bustling than the few cities he had seen on his way here, and it even surpassed Shell City by the sea. Kuei Luo sneered, "Of course it's bustling. Xia Zhitong used her human nature to manage this city, and it's a good thing for the people living in Jade City. Many people have become rich but unfortunately, they don't even dare to call themselves residents of Jade City. If the people of the Yu family were still alive, they would have been angered to death again." Lu Yin nodded. "Yes, some businesses can't be exposed and they've implicated the entire city. They weren't in a hurry to find Xia Zhitong. With Lu Yin and Kuei Luo's strength, they could easily destroy her with a flick of their fingers. However, his identity as Little Prince Yu had to be exposed, and everything he had done before would be exposed. He wanted to act like someone who would do anything for revenge and he wanted everyone to feel his hatred. That night, a flower boat floated alone on the quiet lake. It seemed a little lonely but there was only one boat in the entire lake and it was dedicated to its needs. There was a beautiful courtesan on the boat, leaning against the railing and staring at the lake with misty eyes. She seemed to be waiting for something and there was a faint smile on her face. Not long after, a loud laugh was heard. As the boat swayed, the beautiful woman looked towards the deck, and her habitual smile appeared on her face. "Master Ba, you're here." The one who laughed was a middle-aged man. He looked scholarly and had a bit of a bearing. His eyes were especially attractive, making the woman blush. Although the middle-aged man looked refined, his actions were very rough. He directly picked up the woman and kissed her. "Master Ba, why are you in such a hurry today? Let me slowly serve you." "Oh, of course I'm anxious. After waiting for a few days that woman finally found someone else. Only then did I come to see you, baby," Grandpa Ba said greedily. The woman giggled. "Aren't you afraid that the city lord will scold you for saying that? What can she blame me for? So many men are enough for her to play with. After a while, when she's tired of playing with me, I'll accompany you every day." Grandpa Ba laughed. He was looking forward to that day. The woman smiled. "Alright, I'll be waiting." Grandpa Ba laughed again and pounced forward. "Grandpa Ba, you're in a good mood." A voice suddenly rang out from behind him. It was especially abrupt on this quiet boat. Grandpa Ba's expression changed drastically. He had been about to pounce on the bed, but he suddenly tore through the void and tried to escape without even looking back. However, his body was still tearing through the void. He couldn't move and was suspended in midair. He couldn't see behind him and he couldn't land either. In front of him was the absolutely beautiful woman's pale face. Through her eyes he saw a youth sitting in the corner. He didn't know when the youth had sat there but he hadn't noticed at all. Beside Lu Yin, Tong Yu casually waved her hand, causing Grandpa Ba's body to flip over and crash into the boat below Lu Yin's feet. Grandpa Ba's body stiffened and he slowly raised his head. His mind spun rapidly as he tried to figure out who he had offended. He hadn't been able to retaliate at all, and the person who had dealt with him had an extremely high cultivation. He was at least a cultivator with 3 or 4 origin tribulations. When had he ever offended such a person? Grandpa Ba looked up and saw Lu Yin. His pupils shrank and his expression turned extremely ugly as if he had seen a ghost. Young Master Yu?" The absolutely beautiful woman on the bed was shocked. Young Master Yu? He seemed to have heard of him before. Hadn't he been missing for a long time? Lu Yin grinned at Grandpa Ba. "Master Ba, are you having fun?" Grandpa Ba stared at Lu Yin in a daze. He had never imagined that he would see such a face again in his life. Young master, what's wrong? Aren't you? Lu Yin smiled. What's wrong, Master Ba? Aren't you happy to see me? You can't even complete a sentence. Grandpa Ba gulped and stared at Lu Yin. Why was this person here? Wasn't he supposed to be dead? Even though Grandpa Ba hadn't seen him with his own eyes, it was rumored that young Master Yu had committed suicide. Why was he here? Could it be fake? Grandpa Ba stared at Lu Yin's face. It was real and he wasn't wearing any disguise. Master Ba, long time no see, Lu Yin said. Grandpa Ba's fingers moved and he glanced at Tong Yu, who was standing behind Lu Yin. His gaze hardened and he suddenly tried to take control of Lu Yin. However, Tong Yu was faster than him and easily grabbed his arm. She then exerted some force, causing Grandpa Ba to scream in pain as his right arm was forcefully torn off. Blood splattered all over the cabin. The beautiful woman screamed and fainted. Grandpa Ba clutched at his broken arm and stared at Tong Yu in shock. Lu Yin looked at him in amusement. Master Ba, why are you giving me such a huge gift? How do you think I should return the favor? Grandpa Ba's face paled and he immediately knelt down and begged. Young master, what happened back then had nothing to do with me. Please let me go. It really has nothing to do with me. It was Xia Zhitong and her lover who did it. It was the Xia family who instigated it. I was just one of her gigolos and I definitely didn't help her deal with the old city lord. Lu Yin's smile disappeared. Do you have some misunderstanding about this matter? Xia Zhitong is my wife. You had an affair with her, but you make it sound like it doesn't matter. Why do you need me to congratulate you? Beads of sweat dripped from Grandpa Ba's forehead, and he continuously kowtowed. Young master, I was wrong. I was an animal and I was wrong. But please believe me, I definitely didn't help her deal with the old city lord, nor did I have any intentions of doing anything to him. It was all her doing and it had nothing to do with me. He kowtowed as he spoke, causing the boat to crack and water to leak out. Lu Yin quietly watched as Grandpa Ba kowtowed. Beside the lake, Kuei Lua watched this scene and sighed with emotion. Revenge could only be considered revenge if one took it personally. Lu Yin had returned with young Master Yu's appearance, which could be considered another form of revenge. After kowtowing for half an incense stick, Lu Yin grew tired of it. You said that Xia Zhitong and her lover were the ones who attacked my Yu family. Who was her lover? Have I seen him before? Grandpa Ba's voice trembled as he replied, yes, he was the one who married her off to Yuqing. Uncle. Lu Yin was stunned. Uncle? His surname was Xia, so he couldn't be her biological uncle, right? If he was, how could the Xia family tolerate it? Actually, I thought that Xia Zhitong was just playing around, but after so many years, I realized that she was sent by a side branch of the Xia family to deal with the Yu family. Because the Yu family had once been close to the Lu family, they wanted to announce the Yu family's fate to the entire astral tree realm so that no one would dare to help the remaining Lu family members. That's why they spread the news of what happened in Yuqing and even changed the city to its current state. Back then, the old city lord was angered to death and the young master went missing. The Xia family used this matter to their advantage, and many of the remaining Lu family members were betrayed in the central realm. No one wants to become the next Yu family. Lu Yin's expression darkened. In order to protect the Yu family, Yu Hao's father had deliberately betrayed his own father, who was Yu Hao's grandfather. Only then had Yuqing remained safe and sound. Of course, this was likely something that the Yu family had discussed beforehand. They were smart, but the four cardinal scales were not stupid either. Since they could not deal with the Yu family openly, they had chosen to do it secretly, using such a despicable method. The Yu family's reputation had been completely ruined by Xia Zhitong. When this matter was publicized, one could imagine how many people would mock Yu Hao. His reputation was so terrible that any normal person would not be able to bear it and commit suicide because there was no hope of turning things around. He was facing the four-way scales Xia family, a colossus. Not everyone was like Progenitor Qin, and even Progenitor Qin had only been able to do so because of Lu Tiany's support. Otherwise he would have been destroyed by the Xia family long ago. This consecrated grandpapa had no value at all. If not for the fact that Lu Yi needed someone to investigate Yu Hao after his identity as Yu Hao had been exposed, he would not have sought out this person at all. However, after listening to Grandpa Ba's explanation, Lu Yin realized that it had not been a waste of time. Grandpa Ba truly wanted to do something for the Yu family. No matter what the Yu family's stance was after the Lu family was exiled, They had still been in trouble because of the Lu family. Little Lord, I've thought about looking for you really. I wanted to hide you and let you live out your life peacefully, but you went missing and I couldn't find you no matter what. Little Lord, you have to believe me, Grandpapa hurriedly said as he seemed to sense Lu Yin's killing intent. Lu Yin stood up, exhaled and turned to leave. Grandpapa still wanted to say something, but he was killed by Lu Yin's gaze. He fell into a pool of blood with his eyes wide open. This was the first. Kue Luo left the lake and walked out. It's just as you said. The Yu family suffered because of my Lu family, but it's even worse than what you said. They purposely spread the news about the Yu family's fate, warning the entire astral tree that as long as the 4 cardinal scales were in power, the Yu family would always be a joke, a huge joke. Xia Zhitong would always be free. The more free she is, the more miserable the Yu family will be and more people will know about it, Lu Yin said indifferently. Kue Luo laughed strangely. Some people can't even imagine how ruthless they can be. That old man from the Yu family is still in the Star Alliance, and we don't know if he's dead or alive. If he knew about the Yu family's fate, he would probably die of anger. It's also possible that he's hiding his hatred for revenge one day, Tong Yu interjected. Kue Luo looked at Lu Yin. Which one do you hope for? Lu Yin was stunned and a complicated expression appeared on his face. Normally he would hope that Old Man Yu was still alive. After all, the Yu family was too miserable and Old Man Yu was on good terms with the Lu family. However, it was precisely because of the Yu family's misery that he would lose his mind and not only hate the 4 cardinal scales, but also the Lu family. If not for the Lu family, the Yu family would not have ended up like this. This was human nature. If that was the case, Lu Yin did not know how to face Old Man Yu. Chapter 2177. The only people related to the Yu family were Grandpapa and Xia Zhitong. Once Lu Yin dealt with Grandpapa, Xia Zhitong would be next. The Yu family's former mansion had become a place for Xia Zhitong and her gigolos. It was rumored that there were 69 rooms here and 69 gigolos lived there. Xia Zhitong had transformed the Yu family, including the servants, guards and even the odd job workers. All of them were handsome and as long as she was in the mood she could play with them whenever she wanted. Many people would walk around the mansion when they came to Jade City, just to take a look at this legendary mansion. It was worth mentioning that a plaque with the words Jade Mansion was still hung here, and it was the most scenic spot in the city. The Rainbow Bridge's yellow radiance was covered by the earth, and the sky outside Jade City was covered by a veil, causing night to fall. Outside the Jade Mansion, Lu Yin looked at the guards on both sides of the gate. He had to admit that Xia Zhitong was really ruthless. These guards had been carefully selected, and their appearances were clearly above the average man's. They even had a somber air about them. There weren't many experts in Jade City. Lu Yin easily entered the mansion and found Xia Zhitong. The dark red room was filled with extravagance, and there was even the sound of a woman's laughter. Xia Zhitong was beautiful and her voice was especially graceful and gentle. Her voice was even more enticing. Otherwise she wouldn't have been able to charm little Prince Yu. Giggles could be heard coming from the room, along with the voices of men. Tong Yu looked at Lu Yin strangely. You're not going in? Lu Yin frowned, thinking about how to deal with Xia Zhitong. He definitely couldn't kill her. How could he rely on her to enter Shenwu Plain? Even if he wanted to kill her, he would have to give up his identity as little Prince Yu. He couldn't kill her, but he also wanted to use her. Old man, what do you think we should do? Lu Yin asked. Kue Luo shushed him. Don't talk, just listen. Lu Yin blinked and looked at Kue Luo strangely, just like how Tong Yu had looked at him. You have a hobby of listening to these things? Cut the crap, here comes the main topic, Kue Luo growled. Xia Zhitong's voice came from the room. I'll say it one more time. If you still can't get me to join the Break Society, then don't ever come here again. Baby, it's not that I don't want you to join, it's just that it's too difficult to enter the Breaking Trade Society. You're too famous and you don't have the ability to attract those big shots. If you join, not only will you be exposed, you might even attract the attention of the Four Directions scale. That would be troublesome. Xia Zhitong harumphed coldly. You think too highly of me. I'm just a pawn of the Xia clan. The Xia clan controls Shenwu Plain, but they don't completely represent Shenwu Plain. It's just like how your uncle, the Left Commander, also belongs to Shenwu Plain, but he doesn't belong to the Xia clan. I'm just a collateral member of the Xia clan. Don't think that I don't know what the outside world thinks of me. The Yu family's reputation is bad and my reputation isn't good either. The Xia family can't wait to stay away from me and no one is willing to get close to me. Even that uncle of mine is the same. If I don't think of ways to protect myself, when the day comes that I'm forgotten, my fate won't be much better than the Yu family's. The man sighed. The break society isn't as powerful as you think. If the situation is as you say, then the break society won't be able to protect you. The world of cultivation is too real. No matter how influential the break society is, as long as they don't have the strength to deal with the Lu family's descendants, it won't matter even if the entire astral tree belongs to them. They're facing the entire astral tree. They're not even afraid of the 4 cardinal scales, so why would they be afraid of the break society? Xia Zhitong's voice lowered. So you won't recommend me? The man muttered to himself. Wait a moment. Wait until my position is higher or until my uncle's position is higher. You don't want to try rashly and never be able to enter. Outside, Lu Yin was curious. What's the break society? Kuei Luo replied. I've heard of it before. It's a group formed by many minor characters. They hope to use their own influence to influence a portion of the astral tree. Lu Yin was shocked. There's such an organization? He had merged with many cultivators in the astral tree, but he had never seen any information about the break society. Kuei Luo laughed strangely. There's a clear hierarchy in the astral tree. The top realm has the 4 cardinal scales, the middle realm has the school of agriculture, the Lu family and a few other families. No matter what others do, they can't compare to them. Once there's a sign, the 4 cardinal scales will either take the experts away or bring them to the alliance. Do you think that only the Lu family's descendants and those in the alliance will resist the 4 cardinal scales? Some people have been oppressed for too long. They don't dare to resist openly, but they've secretly joined forces. Is that useful? Lu Yin didn't understand. Kuei Luo thought about it for a moment. The break society didn't have much influence when it was first established. I just happened to know about them back then, but as they developed, more and more people joined them. These people don't seem special at first glance and they don't have much influence, but when they work together they can affect things. My deepest impression is that they can influence the frequency at which certain people participate in the war on the other side to ensure that they survive. Lu Yin was shocked. They can do that? Kuei Luo nodded. I've seen the list and they can indeed do it. Any cultivator who enters the war on the other side has to follow the arrangements and participate for a certain number of years or how many wars they've participated in. However, there are people from the break society who are in charge of calculating the number of years or battles. They can't make large changes, but they can make small changes such as the number of years or battles. In the end, many people can leave the war on the other side half a year or even a year earlier than others. For cultivators with backgrounds, being able to leave the war on the other side early, even if it's just 1 or 2 days earlier, is a good thing. Otherwise, they might die in one of the battles. Lu Yin understood. The war on the other side was too vast and it was impossible to check on everyone. They didn't need to directly change a person's experience. They only needed to make small changes to affect that person's chances of survival. This is just one of the break society's businesses and it's a very cautious one. Apart from that, there are people from all walks of life who join the break society. They don't need to be the most powerful, but they definitely hold important positions and can help the break society accomplish certain things. Every now and then the break society will nurture people to join the various walks of life. After so many years, I don't even know how much influence the break society has. Lu Yin was surprised. You've never paid attention to it? Kuei Luo rolled his eyes. Why would I? No matter how big its influence is, it can't really affect the affairs of the astral tree. Trying to make a big deal out of nothing is just an unrealistic dream. Even if they have 1 or 2 half-ancestors behind them, as long as those behemoths notice them, they can be destroyed in a matter of minutes. Besides, they might not even have 1 or 2 half-ancestors behind them. That kid inside is right. If the Lu family's remnant wants to touch someone, the break society won't be able to protect them. Then why are you eavesdropping now? You seem to care a lot. Lu Yin was puzzled. Kuei Luo pursed his lips. Cut the crap. Just listen. Lu Yin shook his head. This old man just loved to listen to secrets no matter who it was. There's 1 half-ancestor behind the break society, but I don't know how many there are. Let's see if I can find out more. Kuei Luo chuckled to himself. Inside the room, Xia Zhitong and the man were still talking, but the topic had gradually changed. They no longer talked about the Break Society, but instead about business, such as the sale of mother tree barks and the selection of courtesans. Lu Yin listened for a while and learned that the man's identity was the trade union's inspector. He knew about the trade union as he had obtained memories of it when he had fused with Elder Green Apricot's body. As long as there was a trade, there would be an organization that protected it, which was the so-called trade union. The Fifth Mainland also had such an organization, so it wasn't strange for the Astral Tree Society to have one as well. The trade union's status wasn't high, and it was only there to earn money and serve the behemoths. The conversation inside was all about trivial matters. Kue Luo sighed regretfully. That's it. Lu Yin sighed. It's time to talk to this Xia Zhitong. The dark red room was filled with clothes, and Xia Zhitong was curled up in the man's embrace. She spoke softly, but her eyes were terrifyingly deep. At that moment, a voice came from outside. Mistress Yu Hao is back. Xia Zhitong suddenly stood up, her snow-white skin glaring under the red light. The man's eyes gleamed and he licked his lips. Yu Hao, that young master Yu, isn't he dead? He's just missing. Xia Zhitong frowned. How did he come back? Alone? Yes, alone. He looks very haggard. Xia Zhitong stood up, but the man hugged her. Darling, don't worry about him. Play with him first. Xia Zhitong pushed him away and giggled. He's my husband in name. He's just a Xiaobai. Isn't it good that he's dead? He actually came back. Doesn't he know that he's the biggest joke in the entire astral tree domain? The man sneered. The bed we're on belongs to him. Xia Zhitong only put on an almost transparent gauze and walked out. It barely covered her body. The man cursed on the bed and got up in a bad mood. He couldn't see this woman again, and he definitely couldn't bring her into the Broken Ease Society. Otherwise, the society would be exposed. Although he liked to play, he wasn't stupid. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to join the Broken Ease Society even with his status as her uncle. He was more cautious than anyone else. However, just as he was about to leave, a visual message appeared in front of him. He was stunned. How could there be a woman in the Jade Manor? And this woman was very alluring. On the other side, Lu Yin sat quietly in the main hall of the Jade Manor. He was surrounded by guards who glared at him fiercely as if they wanted to eat him alive. At the same time, there was mockery and ridicule in the depths of their eyes. Footsteps sounded and Lu Yin looked towards the door. Xia Zhitong walked over, bringing with her a fragrant scent. Their eyes met, and the veil covering her body made the surrounding guards gulp. Chapter 2178. Lu Yin frowned as he looked at Xia Zhitong. If he really was young Master Yu, he would have slapped this woman to death. How disgusting. Xia Zhitong looked at Lu Yin with bright, infatuated eyes. She liked Yu Hao for no other reason than his face. He was more handsome than any man she had ever met. Even without the Xia family's schemes, she would have thought of a way to marry into Yuqing and obtain Yu Hao. Unfortunately, because of the Xia family's schemes, she had been forced to anger the old city lord to death, causing Yu Hao to lose his mind and go missing. She often regretted not capturing Yu Hao. Even if he had gone crazy, his face was still handsome and attractive. He was much better than anyone else. Thankfully he had returned. Xia Zhitong's lips curled up in a mesmerizing smile. She took off her clothes in front of all the guards and walked over. You're back. Lu Yin was stunned. He knew what kind of person Xia Zhitong was, but this was too brazen. The surrounding guards gulped and stared at Xia Zhitong's body. They wanted nothing more than to pounce on her. Lu Yin watched as Xia Zhitong walked in front of him and tried to hug him, but he couldn't take it anymore. Eye language. As soon as he spoke, the surrounding guards all fell to the ground. Xia Zhitong's body was flung away by a huge force and smashed into the ground. She was stunned and didn't know what had happened. A cloth fell down and covered her. Eye language walked out and stood beside Lu Yin. Lu Yin exhaled and stood up. He walked over to Xia Zhitong and looked down at her. You haven't changed even after so many years. Only then did Xia Zhitong realize that eye language hadn't been too harsh on her. This woman was still useful. You dare to hit me? Xia Zhitong was stunned. Lu Yin laughed. How interesting. You angered my father to death and made Yuqing the biggest joke in the astral tree realm. Yu Hao didn't dare to look at anyone and even tried to commit suicide. If I hadn't been lucky enough to meet my master, I would have died. Tell me, would I have attacked you? Xia Zhitong's face darkened. How do you know what you're saying? You dare to attack me? I'm Xia Zhitong, a member of the Xia family in Shenwu Plain. So what? Lu Yin retorted. Xia Zhitong glared at Lu Yin. You're provoking Shenwu Plain and my Xia family. Do you know the consequences? With just a word from me, your grandfather will die in the Star Alliance. As long as I'm willing, I can slaughter the entire Jade City and let your name go down in history and infamy. I can even order the rewriting of Jade City's history and consign your Yu family to eternal damnation. You know that I can do it. Lu Yin nodded. I believe you, but you wouldn't dare. Xia Zhitong was so angry that she laughed. I don't dare? Who do you think you are? If it wasn't for your skin, I would have tortured you to death long ago. If you dare lay a hand on me, the Xia family won't let you off. Every move I make here will be reported to the Xia family. I'll peel off your skin and hang it in my room. I'll dig out your eyes and put them beside my bed. I'll let you watch me make love to another man. You'll never be able to raise your head again. Tong Yu's eyes narrowed. What a ruthless woman. As the vice arbiter of the Dark Court, she had killed many people, but she had never tortured anyone. However, this woman was very good at torturing people. It was no wonder that she had angered the old city lord to death. Lu Yin squatted down and stared at Xia Zhitong. You're threatening me, which makes me want to kill you even more. Xia Zhitong sneered. If you kill me, you'll be hunted down by the 4 cardinal scales, just like that bastard from the Lu family. The Lu family's bastard was exposed at Longshan, and you should know his fate. You'll end up worse than him because the Xia family won't kill you. They'll use you as a sacrifice to me. Lu Yin's gaze turned cold. Xia Zhitong continued, of course there's another path for you. Tell me, Lu Yin said indifferently. The viciousness in Xia Zhitong's eyes dissipated, and her lips curled up into an enchanting smile once more. She straightened up, and the cloth covering her body was pulled back a little, revealing her fair skin with a tinge of red. She looked extremely alluring. You'll still be my husband, and we'll pretend that nothing happened tonight. The Jade Manor will still be yours, and you can return to your original state. Of course, nothing will change to the outside world, but I won't harm you or restrict your freedom. If you're willing, I'll accompany you every night. I know that you've been infatuated with me since the first time we met. I'll always be yours. How about that? Lu Yin's eyes flickered. You don't want another man? Can Yuqing be restored to its original state? Xia Zhitong shook her head. It's been so many years and you're still so naive. I'm not the one who went against your Yu family, but Shenwu Plain. If Yuqing is restored, you'll be finished. Lu Yin fell into deep thought. Xia Zhitong continued. If you don't want me to have another man, I'll do my best, but the rumors about Yuqing and your Yu family won't change. I'm not lying to you. If you try to change them, you'll only die faster. This is the 4-way scales method of intimidating the astral tree realm, and no one is allowed to destroy it. Master Ba is dead, Lu Yin suddenly said. Xia Zhitong was stunned, but she didn't seem to mind. You killed him. Lu Yin nodded. Xia Zhitong didn't care. So what if he's dead? I'm tired of playing with him after all these years. Do you think you can threaten me with those words? Lu Yin asked. Xia Zhitong smiled. If you wanted to kill me, you wouldn't be talking to me like that. If it was you back then, I definitely wouldn't have survived. Your father was angered to death by me, and I couldn't let go of this grudge. But so many years have passed, and I don't know what you've been through, but I'm sure that some grudges can be set aside. Besides, I didn't kill your father. Lu Yin was amused and couldn't help but clap. That makes sense. You really do have your reasons for being able to break free from worldly norms and do all sorts of shameless things. Xia Zhitong's expression changed. What exactly do you want? Lu Yin's lips curled up. I want revenge. Xia Zhitong stared at Lu Yin. Is it worth it? I gave you everything you wanted. It's been decades and you still haven't thought it through? Lu Yin straightened up. I endured the pain of cultivation for decades just for revenge. Do you think I'll give it up? You're too stupid, Yuhao. So what if you take revenge? You'll still be hunted down like a bastard from the Lu family. Let me tell you, your grandfather isn't dead and he's still in the Star Alliance. If you dare to kill me, he'll die as well. Lu Yin looked at her playfully. I know my grandfather isn't dead, so I won't kill you. But I'll make you suffer the greatest pain in the world. Xia Zhitong was terrified. She didn't know how Lu Yin was going to deal with her. Although she had been used by the Xia family and her reputation had been ruined, she had still enjoyed the bliss of life. She didn't want to lose it. You can't do anything to me, Yu Hao. The Xia family's ancestral worship ceremony is about to begin and I'll be there. If the elders find out, you'll be dead. You can tell me what you want. Do you want to save your grandfather? I have a plan. Xia Zhitong grew anxious. Lu Yin was curious. What plan do you have? Xia Zhitong anxiously replied, everyone in the Star Alliance is an emissary, and they're not weak when gathered together. But do you know why they haven't fled? There are still many remaining members of the Lu family, but none of them have fled. Do you know why? Lu Yin's gaze turned cold. He had never considered this question before. When he had first come into contact with the Star Alliance, he had been at the back of the battlefield. There was no escape from that place, so he had never considered it. Why? Xia Zhitong replied, I'll tell you, but you have to let me go. Lu Yin laughed. Do you think that's possible? It's just a piece of information and you want me to let you go? This isn't simple information. There aren't many people in the entire astral tree domain who know the reason, including the 4 cardinal scales. Only a half-ancestor or above would know. Lu Yin nodded. Tell me. Xia Zhitong still wanted to negotiate, but Lu Yin suddenly attacked and slapped her to the ground. The huge force almost knocked her unconscious, and the remaining force entered her body through her cheek, causing her meridians to be on the verge of shattering. She spat out a mouthful of blood and her face turned pale. She was in a daze as if she had never expected to be hit. This was the first time Lu Yin had taken true revenge since he had disguised himself as Yu Hao. You don't have the right to negotiate with me. Speak. Xia Zhitong looked at Lu Yin in fear. Although she wasn't good at cultivation, she was still a member of the Xia family and was much stronger than Yu Hao. However, the strength that Lu Yin had displayed in that slap was unimaginable. She wasn't strong, but she had extremely high standards, and there were more than 1 or 2 envoys who had played with her. The strength of that slap had seemed fine on the surface, and even her teeth hadn't been broken. However, it had invaded her body and caused her meridians to be on the verge of shattering. She couldn't understand what Yu Hao had gone through to change him completely. Tell me, Lu Yin said indifferently as he looked at Xia Zhitong. Xia Zhitong had been afraid that Lu Yin would be too eager to take revenge and disregard the consequences, but now she was truly terrified. She could no longer see the subservience that Yu Hao had once shown in Lu Yin's eyes. Instead, she saw coldness and mercilessness. The frigid Immortal sect has placed some sort of restriction on everyone in the alliance, just like how we can't remember what happened to the Lu family, Xia Zhitong replied, not daring to negotiate any further. Lu Yin's eyes flashed. Restriction? Frigid Immortal sect? The first thing that came to mind was the cage technique. If the frigid Immortal sect could create the cage technique to enslave the Day-Night clan, then it wouldn't be strange for them to create other restrictions on their own. It was no wonder that the people from the alliance couldn't escape. How do you know? Lu Yin asked curiously, as this wasn't something that someone like Xia Zhitong could understand. Xia Zhitong's voice trembled as she answered, My uncle told me. Xia Yuan? Lu Yin's tone turned cold. Xia Zhitong nodded. Xia Yuan was the uncle who had sent Xia Zhitong to Jade City on the day of her wedding. He was the person that Master Ba had mentioned. He wasn't Xia Zhitong's biological uncle. Although the two of them were from the same branch, Xia Zhitong was sent to Xia Yuan's branch by another branch. She could be considered a branch of the branch, so the Xia family didn't care about her reputation and she could even hook up with Xia Yuan. Thank you for your support, brothers. After the wedding photos were taken, the new chapter began. Although it was tiring, he couldn't let his brothers down. Chapter 2179. My uncle Xia Yuan is second only to half-ancestor Zihuan in the branch family. He overheard this news by accident and told me when we were together, Xia Zhitong said. Lu Yin frowned. This is just a piece of news. How are you going to help me save my grandfather? Xia Zhitong replied, I can find Xia Yuan. The restrictions in the alliance come from the frigid Immortal sect, but they don't belong to the sect alone. The 4 cardinal scales have ways to control the restrictions. As long as I can find Xia Yuan, I might be able to understand how to break the restrictions and save your grandfather. Lu Yin didn't just want to save the elder from the Yu family. He also wanted to save all of the remaining members of the Lu family in the alliance. If he couldn't break the restrictions, then he wouldn't be able to save them. If he wanted to break the restrictions, then Xia Yuan was one way, but the other was to continuously roll possession. He would eventually be able to enter the bodies of those important people, such as the head of the Xia family, Xia Xing. He would definitely know how to break the restrictions. However, saving the people in the alliance was one thing. He also wanted to save the people in the Red Garden. If possible, he wanted to obtain the 9 clones of the Shenwu celestial sect. These were all his next steps. Lu Yin looked at Xia Zhitong. This woman really couldn't be killed, as her value was better than her death. She would die eventually, but not now. A person who had been tormented by hatred for decades would not let his enemy off so easily. He needed to slowly vent his hatred. Lu Yin was such a person. If he really was young Master Yu, then Xia Zhitong couldn't die so easily. I want to save my grandfather, so I won't kill you, Lu Yin said. Xia Zhitong sighed in relief. However, Lu Yin stared into her eyes and saw the fear in them. I'll torture you. Don't you like to play? I'll poison your body, and once you come into contact with someone of the opposite sex, the poison will spread throughout your body and make you wish you were dead. You can try to cure the poison and I won't stop you. However, every time you try, you'll be one step closer to death and one step closer to aging. Xia Zhitong's pupils shrank. Not being able to come into contact with someone of the opposite sex, death and aging were all things she feared. Young Master Yu, brother Yu, many things have passed. You should think about your grandfather. If I die, how will you save him? Lu Yin smiled. I never said that you would die. It's just torture. The Xia family's ancestral worship ceremony is approaching. If they discover that I've been poisoned, it doesn't matter. Let's see who in the Xia family has the ability to cure you. Perhaps you can ask that half-ancestor Zihuan of yours to give it a try. This is a poison that my master developed, so let's see who can cure it. I'll look for you after a while, and I hope that you'll be able to save my grandfather when the time comes. Seeing Xia Zhitong unconscious on the ground, Kuei Luo walked over and said, What a pleasant surprise. Now that you've found out about the jail, do you think she can help you save those people? Lu Yin shook his head. That's not very likely. She's just creating an opportunity for me to give it a try. Through her, more and more people from the Xia family will appear, and I'll have a chance to get in touch with the upper echelons of the Xia family. Using Yu Hao's name, the Xia family won't care about a single Yu Hao, even if he's had a fortuitous encounter. After saying that, Lu Yin invited the Mist Ancestor out, and after a round of praises, the Mist Ancestor fiddled with the effects that Lu Yin had described and invaded Xia Zhitong's body. My way can even create an emissary and simulate an astral cyclone. What you said is too simple. The Mist Ancestor was pleased with himself. Lu Yin hurriedly flattered him. Junior knew that Senior could do it, which is why I made the poison sound so miraculous. This woman doesn't believe me, but will know when she wakes up. Senior's methods are brilliant. The Mist Ancestor frowned. If it weren't for the fact that you wanted to save the Lu family, I wouldn't have helped you. This woman doesn't have the right to touch my way. Disgusting. Lu Yin smiled sheepishly. Junior understands. Thank you, Senior. The Mist Ancestor returned to the mirror, and Lu Yin looked at the unconscious Xia Zhitong. Now that I'm back, the astral tree domain won't be as stable. The 4-way scale won't be stable either. Let's go. After leaving the Jade Mansion, Lu Yin took the man who had hooked up with Xia Zhitong with him. He was very interested in the Broken Ease Society. The 4-way scale suppressed the astral tree domain, and it was an absolute colossus. Aside from the Farmer's family, the Lu family, Memory Sage Academy, Ghost Abyss, and so on, there were also secret organizations like the Hidden Earth Society. Although these organizations were insignificant and could be destroyed as soon as they were discovered, the Broken Ease Society's motto was to use the small to win the big. As long as they weren't discovered, these organizations were still very useful. At the very least, they were very useful to someone like Lu Yin who was hiding in the shadows. Outside Jade City, Lu Yin tossed the man out. The man had been knocked unconscious by Tong Yu, and when he hit the ground, he immediately woke up. He rubbed his head in confusion as he looked at Jade City in the distance. Why was he outside Jade City? Wasn't he supposed to be in the Jade Mansion? As he tried to recall what had happened, he suddenly sensed someone behind him. He turned around and saw Lu Yin, Tong Yu, and Kuei Luo. Of course, he couldn't see their faces as they were all covered up. Who are you? The man remained vigilant, but he wasn't too afraid. He didn't act rashly either. Lu Yin sized up the man. Name. Who are you? How did you bring me out of the Jade Mansion? Where's Xiaojitong? The man barked. Lu Yin raised his head. I'm asking for your name. The man sneered. What a bunch of tricks. Xiaojitong wants to use this method to scare me into bringing her in? Dream on. I already said that I'll bring her in when I can, and there's no point in forcing her. I'm leaving. He then stood up to leave. He really thought that Xiaojitong was behind this as he was in the Jade Mansion. Who would dare to make a move against him? Although Xiaojitong was only a side relative of the Xia family and had no status in the Xia family, she was still a pawn that the Shenwu Plain used to deal with Jade City. Tong Yu's eyes narrowed as a terrifying aura erupted and pressed the man to the ground. The man was shocked as this pressure made it difficult for him to breathe. It was as if the entire universe was crushing him. He couldn't believe that this pressure was even greater than his uncle's. How could this be? His uncle was a fourth origin tribulation cultivator. Just where did these people come from? As soon as he felt the pressure, he knew that it had nothing to do with Xiaojitong. No matter how much she tried, she wouldn't be able to hook up with such a powerhouse unless it was her uncle. You want to talk now? Lu Yin smiled. The pressure disappeared. The man panted heavily, his body on the verge of collapsing from the enormous pressure. He slowly looked up and saw Lu Yin's indifferent expression. He asked in fear, "Who are you people? Why are you capturing me?" Lu Yin shook his head. It seems like you still don't understand me. The moment he finished speaking, the pressure appeared again. This time the pressure was even more terrifying and the man spat out a mouthful of blood. His organs felt like they were about to shatter, and his vision blurred as the world spun around him. He wanted to beg for mercy, but he couldn't open his mouth. The pressure had only lasted for an instant, but it had already severely injured him. The man spat out another mouthful of blood. He didn't even dare to breathe loudly for fear of spitting out his organs. Name, Lu Yin said calmly. When the man heard this, he didn't dare to hesitate. Even if his body was about to shatter, he still had to speak. Zhou Xian. Identity, Lu Yin continued. Merchant Alliance Inspector, Zhou Xian replied. Identity? Lu Yin asked again. Zhou Xian's face was filled with fear as countless thoughts ran through his mind. Eventually he helplessly replied, a member of the Broken Trade Society. Lu Yin looked at Zhou Xian. What's the Broken Trade Society? Zhou Xian coughed and blood flowed from the corner of his mouth, dyeing the ground red. However, he didn't dare to hesitate and trembled as he explained the Broken Trade Society's origins and goals. It was roughly the same as what Kue Luo had told him, but it was more detailed. At the very least, he told Lu Yin the names of some of the members of the Broken Trade Society, such as the left commander of the second base, which Lu Yin had learned from his conversation with Xiaojitong. There was also the old woman who had exchanged merit points for the second base, as well as a cultivator who had entered the back battlefield from the top realm to guard the gate. That's all I know, Zhou Xian said with a trembling voice. Your uncle is the left commander, so your position in the Broken Trade Society should be quite high. How do you know these people? And they're all related to the back battlefield, so most of them are connected to the second base. Zhou Xian replied, I'm in charge of transferring some resources to the central realm to be sold. I also act as a bridge between some families and bring a list of the people they need to protect to my uncle. I don't know anything else, but that's all I'm in charge of. Lu Yin trusted Zhou Xian as there was no need to hide anything from him. Zhou Xian had even betrayed his own uncle. Everyone in the Broken Trade Society was in charge of different things. Zhou Xian was in charge of the second base, but there were definitely people in charge of the other bases as well as those in the top realm, the central realm and the mortal realm. It seemed like a small organization hidden under the four-way scale, but it was actually quite influential. After all, even the four-way scale couldn't openly protect a single person on the back battlefield. Of course, that was only on the surface. How did you get the resources for the second base? Lu Yin asked. Zhou Xian replied, the battlefield is heavily monitored, but there are always people who redeem their merit points and go back to the battlefield without obtaining anything. They don't return alive, so the resources are naturally confiscated. However, those that are publicly available have already been redeemed. Lu Yin's gaze turned cold. Even if some of the resources could have been redeemed at the time, you would still have deliberately withheld them, right? Zhou Xian didn't speak, but he regretted his earlier actions. He had been afraid and had revealed everything. In reality, there were many things that this person in front of him didn't know, and Zhou Xian shouldn't have said anything. At most he knew about the existence of the Broken Trade Society, but he probably didn't know how it operated. However, it was too late for regrets, as Zhou Xian had already revealed everything. Lu Yin frowned and looked at Zhou Xian with disgust. These bastards. The cultivators on the front lines were risking their lives, but the Broken Trade Society was secretly delaying the resources that they had redeemed with their merit points. Given the intensity of the battle at the back of the battlefield, if the Broken Trade Society didn't manage to obtain the resources at the time and delayed them for a day or two, or even a few hours, then the person who had redeemed the resources might have gone back to the battlefield and died. Although this method couldn't transfer a large amount of resources, it was still a sizable source of income for the Broken Trade Society. Adding all 5 bases together, the Broken Trade Society's profits were considerable. However, this income had been obtained at the cost of the lives of the cultivators on the front lines. Chapter 2180. Lu Yin had changed his mind. He could use the Broken Transaction Society, but he had to cut off this business and make them pay a price in the future. The cultivators on the other side of the battlefield were fighting against humanity's greatest enemy, and they were all heroes of the human race. Many of them had children, parents, and grandparents, but it was not worth it for them to die for something like this. He suddenly recalled that when he had exchanged for the cloud landing robe, the old woman had also told him to wait for a while. Had she been deliberately stalling for time? If he died on the battlefield, wouldn't the cloud landing robe which Senior Clear Dust had exchanged for belong to the Broken Transaction Society? Even commanders would covet the cloud landing robe. Lu Yin grew even angrier at this thought. He raised his hand and sent the Grim Reaper's seal into Zhou Xian's body. Zhou Xian was terrified and looked at Lu Yin in confusion. Lu Yin was indifferent. I'll give you some time to find a way to give me a list of the Broken Transaction Society members involved in the trade. I can let you live and help you climb higher in the Broken Transaction Society, even surpassing your uncle. Of course, if you don't give it to me, I'll make your life a living hell. You can ask your uncle to help you remove the power I left in your body. Let's see who can do it. With that, Lu Yin kept the method of contacting his cloud connection stone. The stone was similar to the Fifth Mainland's gadget and they could communicate face to face. However, it did not have the wireless Gu's ability to ignore distance or even communicate across universes. It had both good and bad points. Lu Yin left, leaving Zhou Xian behind. Zhou Xian looked around at the empty surroundings, then at Jade City. He gritted his teeth and hurried away. Those people shouldn't have anything to do with Xia Zhitong, but he couldn't be sure. For such experts to appear out of nowhere, the first person he thought of was the Xia clan. Xia Zhitong couldn't have told the Xia clan about the Broken Trade Society, right? No, she wasn't that stupid. No matter how much she contributed to the Xia family, they wouldn't look at her in the eye. Who were those people? Half a day later, Xia Zhitong left Jade Manor in disguise, her eyes filled with apprehension and lingering fear. She had tried to avoid contact with the opposite sex. She had touched a guard, and the feeling of being bitten by countless ants had driven her mad. She had wanted to tear herself apart. Although it had only been an instant, the feeling had been unforgettable. Yuhao was right. She had poisoned herself so that she could experience the greatest torture in the world. To her, not having a man was the greatest torture. She went all the way to the Rainbow Bridge, near the end of the top realm, and found the Xia family members who were guarding the Rainbow Bridge. The Rainbow Bridge belonged to the Divine Martial Heaven, so the Xia family naturally sent masters to guard it. Xia Feng was one such expert. He was a fourth origin tribulation cultivator and was only one step away from reaching the fifth. Seeing Xia Zhitong's arrival, Xia Feng was disgusted. This woman was ruining the Xia family's reputation. Even though they were both on the Rainbow Bridge, he had never seen this woman before. Let her go. Xia Feng waved his hand and asked someone to chase Xia Zhitong away. He didn't want to see her at all. Soon someone else reported, "She's making a ruckus outside. It's really inconvenient to chase her away." Xia Feng frowned impatiently. Let her in. Xia Zhitong was quickly brought before Xia Feng. Xia Feng looked at her with disgust. What is it? Xia Zhitong respectfully replied, "Seventh Grandpa." Xia Feng raised his hand. We're not from the same faction. Just tell me what it is. Xia Zhitong replied, I'm poisoned. Xia Feng was surprised. Poisoned? Then you can just cure the poison. Why are you looking for me? Xia Zhitong was helpless. I know 7th Grandpa doesn't like me, but I really have no choice. This poison can't be cured with medicine. Otherwise, I wouldn't have come to you. Reporting to the clan, don't you have a good relationship with Xia Yuan? Let him help you. Xia Feng dismissed her. Xia Zhitong looked at Xia Feng. 7th Grandpa, the family isn't just targeting Yuqing because of Yuqing. You should know the importance of this matter. Something happens to me, the family will suffer a great loss. Outsiders will think that it was the Lu family who attacked me. Not only will that not deter the Lu family, but it will also fuel their arrogance. Please reconsider. Xia Feng sneered. It has nothing to do with me. The family allowed you to marry into Yuqing. I'm not responsible for your life or death. I can't go back to the family, Xia Zhitong said gloomily. Xia Feng was stunned and then shook his head. Although Xia Zhitong's plan had succeeded, she had made the Yu family the laughingstock of the entire starry sky of trees. Many people were afraid that they would betray the Lu family and end up like the Yu family. However, she had also sacrificed herself. She had lost her reputation and dignity. Although this was her own choice, her family would not let her go. She had embarrassed the Xia family too much. Maybe I'm not even in the family records anymore, Xia Zhitong said self-deprecatingly. Xia Feng's eyes flashed. Who poisoned you? Xia Zhitong replied, Yu Hao. Yu Hao? That young master Yu? Xia Feng was shocked. Isn't he dead? Xia Zhitong shook her head. He's back and he's a completely different person. He poisoned me and made me suffer the greatest torture in the world. He's taking revenge on me. He doesn't want me to die so easily. He wants to take revenge on the Xia family. Xia Feng snorted. Amir Jr. wants to deal with the Xia family? How laughable. He then pressed a hand on Xia Zhitong's shoulder to check the poison in her body. Suddenly Xia Zhitong screamed and retreated, her face pale. Xia Feng was confused. What's going on? Xia Zhitong told Xia Feng about the poison's characteristics. Xia Feng narrowed his eyes. This method was not cruel as long as one did not touch the opposite sex. However, it was the greatest torture for Xia Zhitong. A woman's greatest joy was doing that kind of thing. If she could not do it, then what was the point of living? In order to deal with the Yu family, she had sacrificed her reputation and everything else, all for the sake of immersing herself in pleasure. However, Yu Hao had taken away this joy, leaving Xia Zhitong with endless torture and humiliation. Without that joy, she became clear-headed and thought of many things. If it had been before, how could she have been so depressed that she could not return to the Xia family? How could she have cared about being removed from the family records? He did not care at all, but things were different now. The torture had only just begun. Xia Feng did not touch Xia Zhitong and tried to use his astral source to expel the poison in her body, but he could not find where it was. No matter what he did, he could not find it, and no medicine was effective. Xia Feng's face turned serious. What's going on with Yu Hao? He can't have such methods. It's only been a few decades. Even the junior ancestor can't do this to me. Xia Zhitong despaired. Even you can't cure the poison? Xia Feng was helpless. It's not that I can't cure it, it's that I can't find it. Are you really poisoned? He was somewhat suspicious. Xia Zhitong immediately swore an oath, spitting out all of her vile oaths. Nothing could torment her more than this poison. Xia Feng sighed. I can't. Perhaps the family can. Go find Xia Yuan. With that, he allowed Xia Zhitong to leave. Xia Zhitong walked out in a daze and looked up at the top realm. Find Xia Yuan? She could not find him and she could not return to her family. Perhaps she could not even return to the top realm. No, she had to get rid of the poison. Her life had already become like this and she could not return to the past. If she did not get rid of the poison, she might as well die. Elsewhere, Lu Yin had found a place to begin his seclusion. Kuei Luo was puzzled. Kid, you haven't been in seclusion for long, but you've been in seclusion for a long time. What's going on? Lu Yin pursed his lips. It's normal for me to go into seclusion and cultivate when I have sudden epiphanies. Kuei Luo sneered. Normal, my ass. You must be hiding something. Tong Yu, stand guard for me. Lu Yin chased Kuei Luo away and had Tong Yu stand guard. He set up a source box array and began to roll his die. He would not place his hopes on Xia Zhitong. Now that he had come to this region of space, there was a high chance that Enhance would be absorbed into the bodies of the experts here. If he did not try it now, when would he? At the very least, he would be able to obtain some information. He did not know whether his luck was good or bad this time. He had rolled enhance twice in a row, but not once had he rolled enhance. After resting for 10 days, Lu Yin continued to roll his die. On his third try he finally rolled enhance. His consciousness entered the dark space, and he discovered that there were more bright orbs than when he had been in the fifth mainland. All of the orbs were brighter than when he had been in the fifth mainland, which meant that the overall strength of the cosmic tree realm far surpassed that of the fifth mainland. However, he still could not find any orbs that were as bright as his own. He shifted his consciousness and looked around, but he still could not find any. Even in the cosmic tree realm, there were not many powerhouses with power levels over 1,000,000. Lu Yin was worried that he would consume too much star essence, so he had no choice but to find the brightest one to merge with. After merging with it, Lu Yin opened his eyes and saw a blade descending. He was startled and hurriedly dodged. The blade streaked through the void and slashed into the ground. Zhang Dingtian looked at him with a confused expression. Zhang Dingtian? Zhang Dingtian looked at him blankly. Teacher? Lu Yin was stunned. Teacher? At that moment his memories flooded in, and he was left speechless when he realized that he had merged with Lu Yi's body. Lu Yi was the first person from the Lu family that Lu Yin had seen a sword steal, and Zhang Dingtian was his disciple. At that moment, Zhang Dingtian had asked Lu Yi for guidance because he had just comprehended a sword steal. He had not expected to merge with Lu Yi's body as soon as the blade landed. If he had not reacted quickly enough, Lu Yi would have been killed. Lu Yin thought to himself. Your attack was very weak, Lu Yin spoke up. His voice was hoarse, but it was clearly Lu Yi's voice. Zhang Dingtian was puzzled. Of course it's weak compared to teacher. Does teacher see anything that needs to be compensated for? Lu Yin looked at the blade in Zhang Dingtian's hand as memories continued to flood in. He tried to search for any memories related to the Star Alliance, but there were very few. Lu Yi was from the Lu family, not the four cardinal scales. His understanding of the Star Alliance was similar to Lu Yin's, and even if he was from the four cardinal scales, a fourth tribulation cultivator would not have been enough to know the Star Alliance's secrets. Merging with Lu Yin's body was useless. Teacher. Zhang Dingtian was even more confused. Lu Yin looked up. Repeat that attack. Remember, it has to be exactly the same. Thank you for your support, brothers. Thank you. Chapter 2181. Although Zhang Dingtian was in a strange state, he still did as he was told. This is what I comprehended from the sword steal. It's one of the 9 forms, the body-severing technique. He then slashed out with his blade. It was clearly a blade slash, but his entire body felt like a blade. This feeling was similar to Leng Qing's, where one's body had turned into a blade. Lu Yin instantly withdrew from the fusion, and the blade happened to be right where he had fused. Lu Yi's consciousness returned and he did not suspect anything. With a bang, the blade bounced off. You've already comprehended 6 of the 9 forms. Although they are simple, they contain the essence of the blade. Only when you master all 9 will you truly touch the way of the blade. Zhang Dingtian seemed to be deep in thought. Although he was curious about Lu Yi's state, he did not say anything. Again. Lu Yi shouted. Zhang Dingtian raised his blade high and slashed down. On the other side, Lu Yin exhaled. Lu Yi's memories were very complicated. He had lived for a very long time, even though his cultivation was not very high. Most of his memories were related to the way of the sword, and Lu Yin felt that his own understanding of the way of the sword had deepened. He also learned that the Lu family placed a lot of importance on Xian Academy. Not only the Lu family, but even the School of Agriculture and the 4 cardinal scales also placed a lot of importance on Xian Academy. However, Lu Yi did not know the exact reason. The last time he had come to the astral tree, the 4 cardinal scales' attitude towards Xian Academy had been very strange. Xia Taili had wanted to go there, and when Shizhong had promised to help her, she had been very happy, but why did everyone else want to go there? He immediately asked Elder Green Apricot, but she did not know. He then asked Longxi. Xian Academy has many secret techniques, and that's what attracted us. However, that's definitely not what attracted the 4 cardinal scales and the other families. I don't know the exact reason, Longxi answered. Lu Yin nodded. It seems like Xian Academy still has some secrets. Longxi said, I've heard rumors that Xian Academy's hidden mountain sea. I don't know if that's what attracted them. Lu Yin was shocked. Hidden mountain sea? 9 mountains and 8 seas? She shook her head. I don't know, but Xian Academy has never had a lack of ancestors. Although they don't have any progenitors, they still have as many ancestors as the cardinal scales. If that was the case, then he really did have to go to Xian Academy. However, what did the mountains and seas have to do with half-ancestors? In theory, it was impossible for a half-martial ancestor to inherit the mountains and seas. This was one of the reasons why the fog ancestor was so proud. We're back in the starry sky of trees? She asked. Lu Yin nodded. Are you going out? She shook his head. No need. Lu Yin replied, I might go to Xian Academy. Now that the academy has changed, many people from the four-way scales will go there. Perhaps I'll be able to meet some of the younger generations of your White Dragon clan there. She thought for a moment before replying, It's not very likely. It's very difficult for the White Dragon race to have children. There are only a few people in this generation, and the next generation won't appear in a few decades. Unlike other clans, elites are born every 10 or 20 years. Lu Yin didn't chat with Shi for too long, as he wanted to continue rolling his die and try to uncover the secrets of the four-way scales. That's right, let's see how much it costs. Right now, Lu Yin had too many cosmic rings and he had no other choice. A single cosmic ring could not hold that many star essence. 7 billion star essence had been fused into Lu Yi's body, which had consumed a total of 7 billion star essence. Lu Yin relaxed as it was still acceptable. When he had fused with the 6th Mainland's Manor Master Dream, he had consumed 3 billion star essence. Lu Yi's cultivation was close to Manor Master Dream's, and there wasn't much of a difference. Furthermore, they weren't that far apart, so it was normal for him to consume 7 billion star essence. With Lu Yin's wealth, this expenditure wasn't considered much, so he continued. At the same time, Xia Zhitong successfully contacted Xia Yuan. On the Cloud Pass stone, Xia Yuan looked at Xia Zhitong's image and angrily scolded. I told you that I wouldn't contact you and you definitely couldn't contact me. You're too bold. You actually contacted me through someone else. Xia Zhitong calmly replied, I wouldn't have contacted you if I wasn't in a desperate situation. Xia Yuan frowned. What desperate situation? Aren't you living a carefree life in Jade City? Xia Zhitong could hear the mockery in his voice. This was probably the mockery of the entire Xia family towards her. Even Xia Yuan, who had a fling, was no exception. No one looked up to her. How was she any different from the Yu family? I've been poisoned and I can't cure it. I can only come to you for help, Xia Zhitong said. Xia Yuan raised his brows. Go find Xia Feng. He can help you. Xia Zhitong sneered. I did, but he couldn't help me. He told me to look for you. His cultivation is higher than mine and he's lived longer than me. Why can't he help you? Xia Yuan said gloomily. Xia Zhitong looked at Xia Yuan's reluctant expression and slowly said, If you won't help me, then I'll have to look for the patriarch. You know, I have a way. What are you trying to do? Xia Yuan roared. Xia Zhitong calmly replied, I'm being tortured and no one will have a good time. I'll die from the poison and I'll have someone die with me. Are you threatening me? If I wasn't in a desperate situation, I'd rather enjoy life in Jade City. Who would have the time to threaten you? Xia Yuan's eyes flashed as he stared at Xia Zhitong. What poison? Who did it? An old acquaintance of yours, Yu Hao, Xia Zhitong said word by word. Xia Yuan's expression changed. Yu Hao? Isn't he dead? Xia Zhitong took a deep breath. It's best if you come to Jade City. Yu Hao has changed. He wants to take revenge not only on me but also on the entire Xia family. Xia Zhitong looked at Xia Yuan's disdainful gaze and continued. I know you don't think much of him and you don't think that anyone can harm the Xia family, but he's already done it. If he does something that angers the patriarch, you won't be able to escape responsibility. You were the one who suggested the Yu family's plan, and you've received many benefits over the years. If anything happens, the family won't let you off. Xia Yuan thought about it. Wait for me and don't go anywhere. I want to see what this Yu Hao has up his sleeves. He then ended the call. Lu Yin had expected that with his current cultivation he would be able to merge with some important people in the astral tree domain. However, he had not expected that the second person to merge with would be a super important person. Long Ku, the current patriarch of the White Dragon clan. The White Dragon clan's main bloodline had been cut off, and Long Ku's side bloodline had taken over. Because of this, when Long Tian had been trapped in the sovereign realm and Long Shi had gone missing, Long Ku's position had been extremely unstable. Lu Yin's alias Draconic 7 had suddenly risen to prominence. Not only had he displayed great lock-breaking talent, but he had also been recognized by Wuxia, the governor of the humble school, and had been accepted as a disciple. Once the news had spread, Long Ku had been abandoned by the White Dragon clan. And Ai Huang had personally acted as a matchmaker for Lu Yin, allowing him to marry the Xia family's princess, Xia Taili. His status as the son-in-law of the White Dragon clan had also been revoked. Once his cultivation increased, he could directly replace Long Ku and become the new patriarch. It seemed like this method of ascension was very open-minded, but it actually exposed the White Dragon clan's shallow foundation. Aside from Long Tian and Long Shi, there was no one else in the main bloodline who could take over. This had allowed a remote side bloodline to take over. Long Ku was a scheming person and Lu Yin knew a lot about him. This person had tried to use Lu Yin to deal with the Long Quan side bloodline and secure his position as patriarch. He was also very strong and had a cultivation at 5 tribulation origin stage. He had threatened Lu Yin and wanted to eliminate Lu Yin, but he had not succeeded in the end. Lu Yin had not expected that the second person he would merge with would be Long Ku. The White Dragon clan really had an affinity with him. First it was Long Quan and now it was Long Ku. Long Ku could not be compared to Long Quan. Even if his position was unstable as the patriarch of the White Dragon clan, he knew everything that he needed to know. Lu Yin continued to search through his memories, and many of the White Dragon clan's secrets were revealed to him without reservation. This included the White Dragon clan's battle techniques, secret techniques, and even the Star Alliance's restrictions. Long Ku's memories kept surging into Lu Yin's mind. Other than the secrets that only the half-ancestors and the dragon ancestor knew, he knew everything else. This included how to activate and break the source box array on Dragon Mountain, where the White Dragon clan stored their resources, and where Long Ku stored his own resources. There were also some secrets shared by the 4 cardinal scales. He also saw the Lu family from back then and he saw himself. Although Long Ku was from a side bloodline of the White Dragon clan, because the dragon ancestor had been born, the White Dragon clan's status was second only to the Lu family. When the Lu family was still around, the White Dragon clan was on par with the frigid Immortal sect. With Long Ku's status, he had visited the Lu family several times and met Zhou Xian. Lu Yin had never thought that he would see his past self in someone else's memories. His past self had been just as Long Shi had described: cheerful, passionate, and gifted. He had been the object of envy and worship for countless people in the cosmic tree realm. In that generation, the 7 heroes had been magnificent, and everyone had believed that they would be able to recreate the glory of the Daoist sect's era. The White Dragon clan had also had one of the 7 heroes, and it had been the main bloodline's daughter, Long Xing. She was also Lu Xiaoshuan's 4th sister. Lu Yin had never looked at someone's memories so calmly before. It was as if he was looking at an image. He saw himself in Long Ku's memories as well as the Lu family in his memories. He could also feel Long Ku's emotions. When Long Ku had first met Zhou Xian, he had been passionate, but his heart had been filled with jealousy and hatred for Long Xing, the main bloodline's daughter. He had long wanted to replace the main bloodline, but with his status back then he could only dream about it. The most exciting day of his life had been when the Lu family had been exiled. The main bloodline of the White Dragon clan had disappeared, and he had become the clan leader. That day had been deeply engraved in his memory, and it had also left an indescribable impression on Lu Yin. The more excited Long Ku had been, the more furious Lu Yin had been. In Long Ku's memories, he saw the sky filled with red flowers and he saw Long Shi crying as she cried. He saw the entire top realm disappear, and he saw a giant ancestral mandala's tail that stretched across the sky. Most people had lost their memories of that day and only a few of them remembered it. Lu Yin did not see that day in Long Quan's memories, nor did he see that day in Lu Yi's memories. This was because only a small number of people had witnessed that day in that scene, and they were qualified to retain that memory. Long Ku's memories were too complex, and even though Lu Yin had spent a long time looking at them, he had only seen the tip of the iceberg. He could only search for the important memories. After some time, someone requested to see Long Ku, and Lu Yin withdrew from the fusion. Thank you for your support, brothers. Thank you. Chapter 2182. Lu Yin had never fused with a single person for such a long time, not even White Sage. He had seen too many of Long Ku's memories and seen too many things that ordinary people wouldn't know. He also knew too much about Long Ku. However, none of this was as important as the Star Alliance. He knew how to break the restrictions, but unfortunately the Caged Realm's restrictions required the four heavens to work together to break them. Long Ku only knew a quarter of it. This was a rule set by the four heavens to prevent a single family from controlling the Star Alliance. Regardless of the reason, everyone in the Star Alliance was still an emissary. 1 or 2 emissaries wasn't scary, but 10 or 20 emissaries was. Even the four heavens didn't have that many emissaries. Whoever controlled the Star Alliance alone would be able to crush all the other powers in terms of emissary-level power. This was something that the four heavens didn't want to see. Since they couldn't control the Star Alliance alone, they had to split it into 4 parts. This way they could prevent the Star Alliance from being controlled alone and also prevent someone from rescuing everyone. The four heavens didn't underestimate the Lu family's remaining members. The White Dragon clan only had a quarter of the Star Alliance, so he had to go to the other 3 families. The Xinwu Plain was possible since Xia Zhitong could get close to Xia Yuan, but what about the frigid Immortal sect in the Wang family? He thought of Wang Su. That woman had been locked up in the Above Heaven sect, but she hadn't been locked up in Mount Supreme. Wang Yi was the same, so it would be difficult to get close to the Wang family. This was just the Star Alliance. Lu Yin had looked into the Red Garden through Long Ku's memories. The Red Garden seemed simple and could be taken away by force. However, it wasn't just the Red Garden where the Lu family was locked up. It was also Bai Xian'er's backyard. If anything happened to the Red Garden, Bai Xian'er would be the first to know. No one knew how terrifying Bai Xian'er was. Even though she was from the same generation as the 7 heroes and was Long Ku's junior, who would dare to treat her as a junior in the current astral tree realm? Her cultivation was unfathomable, and it was said that she was already a half-step ancestor. Long Ku had even heard from Elder Ni Huang that Bai Xian'er was unfathomable. He would rather fight with Wan Ji than Bai Xian'er. Since Great Elder Ni Huang had said so, Long Ku believed her without a doubt. Lu Yin also believed that it wasn't because of Long Ku's memories, but rather because he had seen Bai Xian'er's eyes when he had met the astral tree after becoming an envoy. Those eyes had looked down upon the world, and the destruction of the 3 upper gates had been related to her. She had even caused Elder Chan to fear her with a single finger. Bai Xian'er was definitely a great enemy of the Lu family, but he didn't have the confidence to face her head-on right now. He didn't even know what role she'd played in the Lu family's banishment. Even the Lu family, which had been at its peak, had been exiled, let alone him. If they wanted to save the Star Alliance, they had to save them together. Otherwise, if they saved the Star Alliance, the Red Garden would definitely be prepared. This was the most troublesome thing. The square balance was not a fool. If he had known earlier, he would have brought along Wang Wen and Wei Rong, as these 2 were experts at scheming. Do you still want to roll the dice? Lu Yin thought about it, but he still decided to roll the dice. The second time he would merge into Long Ku's body, and perhaps after a few more times he would be able to find Xia Xing, Wang Zheng and Bai Ting. That way he would know how to break through the restrictions placed on the Star Alliance's bodies, and he would also know more about the Red Garden. Hold on. Lu Yin suddenly checked his cosmic ring. He had merged into Long Ku's body for too long, and he didn't know how much he had consumed. His face twitched when he saw that it was 90 billion star essence coins. It was a total of 90 billion star essence, which made Lu Yin's heart bleed. How many times more had he consumed than Lu Yi? Lu Yin gulped and tossed away the empty cosmic ring. Although it pained him, it was worth it. He had merged into Long Ku's body for too long, so long that he could take a stroll around Dragon Mountain. Merging with Lu Yi was not something he could compare to, so it was understandable that he had consumed so much. Furthermore, Long Ku was in the top realm. Although that was what he consoled himself, Lu Yin still felt rather uncomfortable that he had used up so much. He would definitely find Long Ku to repay this debt. In any case, he knew the location of Long Ku's collection of resources. As the leader of the White Dragon clan, even if he had only recently taken the position, he should still have some savings. While thinking about this, Lu Yin continued to roll his die. He hadn't noticed that the last time he had rolled Long Ku was the 4th time, and this was the 5th time. Intense pain assaulted him, and he felt as if his head was being torn apart. No matter how much his cultivation had increased, he could only roll the die 4 times. He would definitely not be able to endure the 5th time, but the consequences were not as severe as the first time. At the very least, he had not fainted. It took Lu Yin a long time to recover. At that moment he sensed Kuei Luo approaching and walked out. Xia Yuan has arrived at Yuqing. He's already met up with Xia Zhitong, Kuei Luo said. Lu Yin nodded and looked in the direction of Yuqing. Let's see how many times Xia Zhitong can endure the pain of failure. In Yuqing, Xia Zhitong had finally waited for Xia Yuan to arrive. During this time she had been burning with anxiety, and her face had become much more haggard. There were more and more rumors about her in the outside world, all because she had not found a gigolo. Not only that, but she had also chased away all of the gigolos in her jade mansion. Many people said that she was sick and that it was an incurable disease. Some said that she had gone crazy and others said that someone had attacked her. Yuqing was now in a state of panic. Xia Zhitong was not only in this state because of the way in her body, but also because she had aged slightly. She had asked Xia Feng to help her detoxify the poison, but he had failed. After returning to Yuqing, she had discovered that her skin was wrinkling, and even her cultivation was useless. Her eyes were no longer as bright as before, and her hair had also withered and yellowed. This discovery caused her to collapse and she did not dare to meet anyone. She suddenly remembered Yu Hao's words. He wanted her to endure the greatest torture in the world. Not only was she unable to touch the opposite sex, but every time she failed to detoxify the poison she would also age slightly. The more she thought about it, the more terrified she became. Amidst her despair, Xia Yuan finally arrived. When Xia Yuan saw Xia Zhitong, he frowned. How did you change? Xia Zhitong's expression turned ugly and she lowered her head. Her voice was hoarse as she said, Xia Feng can't save me and it's useless even if you come. I need you to find a way to get me back to Shenwu Plain. I want to participate in the ancestral worship. Xia Yuan frowned. I said I would help you. What can a mere Yu Hao do? Even Xia Feng can't save me. Xia Zhitong screamed, her eyes red. She was going crazy. She had not touched a man for more than half a month and her body was still aging. Xia Yuan's gaze turned cold. Xia Feng just doesn't want to help you. Do you think Yu Hao has the power to fight against me? Even Shen Fei can't do that. I want to go and pay respects to the ancestors. Xia Zhitong glared at Xia Yuan as if she wanted to eat him. You're crazy. I'm helping you. Xia Yuan was unhappy. Xia Zhitong kept backing away. Don't touch me and I don't need you to help me. I want to see half-ancestor Zihuan. Me. Xia Yuan angrily rebuked. Nonsense. You think you're worthy of seeing a half-ancestor? Let me see what kind of poison you've been poisoned with. Xia Yuan then grabbed Xia Zhitong. The difference in strength between them was too great and Xia Zhitong could not break free. The result was the same as Xia Feng's. Xia Yuan was helpless and let go. Xia Zhitong screamed like a madwoman. I said it's useless. You're harming me. You want me to die, you want me to age, you want me to become ugly and I'll become the biggest joke in the starry sky tree. Don't think you'll have an easy time either. Xia Yuan's eyes flickered. Where did Yu Hao get such a technique from? Even he was helpless against it. Did he have to ask a senior with 6 tribulation origin stage to help? Xia Zhitong's clothes were in a mess and she no longer looked as beautiful as before. She glared at Xia Yuan like a crazy woman. I want to see a half-ancestor. Only a half-ancestor can save me. If I die, people will think that it was done by the Lu family. Your plan will fail. Not only that, but you'll also be blamed by the family and become the joke of the 4 cardinal scales. Xia Yuan's voice was cold. You think you can threaten me with just dying of illness? Xia Zhitong sneered. I knew you were heartless. Dear uncle, do you think I'm stupid enough to trust you? Do you think I don't know what the family thinks of me? I've already made preparations. Once I die, everyone will know that it was done by the Lu family's surviving members. I guarantee it. Xia Yuan's eyes narrowed and he stared at Xia Zhitong murderously. You're the one who spread the rumors? Xia Zhitong laughed hoarsely. This is just the beginning. I'll spread the news about the Yu family to help you intimidate the starry sky of trees. At the same time, I've also prepared a backup plan. The faster the news about the Yu family spreads in the starry sky of trees, the faster the list of people who were killed by the Lu family's retainers, as well as the list of people who were involved with me, will spread throughout the starry sky of trees. If my reputation is ruined, you won't have an easy time either. The Xia family's reputation won't improve either. Xia Yuan was furious and he raised his hand to slap Xia Zhitong to death. Xia Zhitong laughed maniacally. Come on, kill me. I'm already in this state. If I die, the Xia family's reputation will be ruined and you won't be able to find Yu Hao. If he can do this to me, he can do the same to you. Xia Yuan's heart sank. If Yu Hao had a poison that he couldn't deal with, then he might have other methods as well. The Xia family's reputation was important, and this woman's death was not worth mentioning. However, destroying the four-way balance and boosting the Lu family's prestige was not something he could do. Otherwise his life would be over. He did not want to die with this crazy woman. I think you're crazy. You're actually threatening your own family. Xia Yuan lowered his hand and calmed down. Xia Zhitong mocked. What, you're not going to kill me? Xia Yuan took a deep breath and forced himself to calm down. I'll let you pay respects to your ancestors and meet half-ancestor Zihuan, but you should know what to say and what not to say. Also, you have to find Yu Hao. This person must be eliminated. Xia Zhitong's gaze was sinister and she gritted her teeth. Don't worry, I'll get rid of him. I'll let him taste the greatest torture in the world and return it to him 1,000 times over. Outside the Jade Manor, Lu Yin watched everything unfold as if he was watching a show. Kuei Luo laughed. What do you think? I didn't call you out in vain. This was a good show, wasn't it? Lu Yin's lips curled up. It was. It's a pity that I didn't appear, or it would have been even better. Kuei Luo laughed strangely. What do you think of the Xia family paying respects to their ancestors? Chapter 2183. Lu Yin looked up at the pinnacle realm. Xia Zhitong had been invited to the Xia family's ancestral worship, so as her husband in name he should go as well. However, he was afraid that he would run into the Xia family's ancestor and be exposed. He had to think of something. Now that the show is over, it's your turn to watch the show with me, Kuei Luo said. Lu Yin was confused. Watch what show with you? Kuei Luo's strange laughter was filled with indignation. That old coot, the food god, actually mocked me for being immoral. Fine, I'll show him that. Let's go to Xian Academy. Teaching and educating people has always been my dream. Lu Yin was puzzled and sized up Kuei Luo. Educating people? It didn't seem like it. Kid, what's with that look? Let me tell you, I'm the best at teaching students. Kuei Luo was displeased. Lu Yin pursed his lips. Fine, I'll go with you. In fact, even if Kuei Luo hadn't mentioned it, he would have gone to Xian Academy anyway. Bringing students out for training was one of the few ways to enter the four-way scales openly. Moreover, Xian Academy had the cultivation method of the domain void god realm that he wanted. It could touch space, and perhaps it would allow him to improve his understanding of the plan's secret art. Also, he was very interested in the four-way scales. It was time to become a teacher, but he didn't know if he was qualified. There were a total of 9 large districts in the Middle Plain world. Each district had its own unique origin. For example, the Yin Mountain district. Although it was large, it was desolate. People would unconsciously feel cold when they walked in. It was even difficult for normal people to walk outside the Yin Mountain district. The Blue Moon district got its name because it was the only place where one could see the Green Mountains outside the central realm. From below it looked like a full moon, so it was called the Blue Moon district. The region that Lu Yin and the others were currently in was called the Memory district. This was because Memory Academy was located here, which was why it was called the Memory district. This Xian district is different from the Bifrost Bridge, the Yin Mountain district and the Huayuan district. Lu Yin sighed as he looked at the vast landscape. After leaving Bifrost Bridge Jade City, Lu Yin had been led by Kuei Luo to Xian Academy, which had taken him half a day. The central realm was too vast, and even a single mountain range could nurture an astral civilization. The distance from one zone to another was not as close as the distance between the outer verse and the cosmic sea from the fifth mainland. It might even be farther. The central realm was much larger than the fifth mainland, but the top realm was much smaller. The lower realm was the largest, as it was the root of the mother tree. However, Lu Yin had never seen exactly how large it was. He had yet to truly look down at the starry sky tree from the starry sky above his head and see the land clearly. Xian Academy has been famous since ancient times. Even the four heavens would think of ways to send their own children to study here, let alone the other clans. All the powers in the Middle Realm have their eyes on Xian Academy. Countless young elites have rushed over from all directions, thinking of ways to enter Xian Academy. This has caused Xian district to flourish and be filled with vitality, said Elder Qing Sheng. He had been released. Kuei Luo sighed. Back in the day, this old man also came to Xian Academy to study, but this lousy place was too rigid and boring, so I left. You couldn't get in, right? Lu Yin glanced at him. Kuei Luo grinned. To this old man, Xian Academy is nothing. That old man Luo Zhe and I were invincible in this region, and countless beauties threw themselves at us. I was too young back then and didn't know how to cherish them. Otherwise, I would have had so many children and grandchildren by now. At this moment, the mist ancestor appeared and looked into the distance with a strange expression. I like this place. This place is young and full of vitality. Look, there are duels everywhere. Lu Yin followed the mist ancestor's gaze and saw quite a few youths fighting in groups. They were using all sorts of battle techniques and even boasting. Quite a few people had stopped to watch, and there was a city in the distance that was bustling with activity. It had a cultural atmosphere that was different from Baytown. Right, Lu Yin looked at those people and then back at his own group. No wonder he had felt that something was off when he had first arrived in the Xian district. The clothes that the people there wore were similar to the clothes of ancient scholars and swordsmen, while his own group wore all sorts of clothes. They even had modern technology on their feet which made them look out of place. Above his head, many figures were chatting and laughing as they walked into the distance. They were all youths, and there were also some elders accompanying them further away. Is it the enrollment season for Xian Academy? Why is it so lively? Lu Yin was curious and asked as he walked. The number of people around him gradually increased and the place was bustling with noise. Elder Green Apricot said, Xian Academy doesn't have a fixed enrollment season. Anyone under the age of 40 can join at any time as long as they pass the exam. Lu Yin was puzzled. How are they going to teach this way? Elder Green Apricot replied, I'm not too sure about that. I've never been here before, but I'll know once I enter. Xian Academy was located in the center of the Xian district, and the city that they were currently in was only at the edge of the district. They were still quite a distance away from Xian Academy, but even so the competition here was fierce. Many people were selling items from Xian Academy's past examinations, while others were working together to gain experience and discuss how to enter the academy. There were also quite a few who used the name of training as an excuse to attract business. Xian Academy had very few students, but it was very profitable. The young master of the Huayuan Fenghua clan is here. Someone exclaimed, and many people looked towards the city gates. A strand of flames transformed into something that resembled a crimson dragon and roared as it entered the city. There was a youth on its back, and the youth had a resolute expression. His eyes were especially sharp, and anyone who was seen by him would feel flustered and unconsciously look away. Behind the youth, at least 100 cultivators rushed over in an orderly fashion. They were all dressed in the same uniform and they surrounded the strand of flames. Elder Green Apricot promptly explained, the Fenghua clan is a large clan in the Huayuan district, and their leader has always been an emissary. This clan specializes in fire attacks and they nurture military talents. There are members of the Fenghua clan serving as commanders on the battlefield at the back of the city. They are considered a rather powerful clan. Lu Yin did not mind and quickly left the city. He had only been looking around out of curiosity. On the way to Xian Academy they passed by many more cities. Some stayed behind to take a look while others directly passed by. They saw quite a few famous clans and sects in the central realm. These clans and sects could only be considered famous in their own districts, and they were far from being comparable to the famed farmers or the Lu family in the Tree Galaxy. Lu Yin had never met Long Seven before, so he was still unfamiliar with these clans. However, these clans had more or less produced some talents. The development of the Tree Galaxy could not be completely dependent on these colossi. On the contrary, these small and medium-sized clans and sects made up the majority of the population. Kid, I'm leaving. That old coot, the food god, really thinks that Xian Academy is full of righteousness. I'm going to take a look around and see if this rundown place is hiding filth. Kuei Luo excitedly left. He could not go to Xian Academy as there were at least 2 half-progenitors there, which made him feel apprehensive. He could only wander around the area and see if there were any secrets that he could uncover. Lu Yinin could not stop him as Kuei Luo wanted him to go to Xian Academy so that he could have a spy. Elder Green Apricot was taken back to Mount Supreme, and Tong Yu was left in the vicinity like Kue Luo. She would not enter Xian Academy with Lu Yin, so he could only enter by himself. Of course, the Fog Ancestor was also with him. Lu Yin had originally planned to head directly to Xian Academy, but he had been attracted by the origin tribulation in the distance. He had rushed over, but he had not expected to run into someone undergoing their tribulation. This origin tribulation was very short, which meant that the person undergoing the tribulation did not have a very high cultivation base. It was far from being comparable to Lu Yin's cultivation base. It was just an ordinary cultivator, and such a cultivator's chances of success were not high. However, this person had succeeded, and Lu Yin even knew the person who had undergone the tribulation. Lan Gui was the person undergoing the tribulation. Back when Xianxia had brought Lu Yin to Dragon Mountain in the topmost realm, the Eternals had attacked the array bases at the back of the battlefield and activated the limitless power source box array. Xianxia and the others had to pour astral source into the array bases, but the Eternals had sent spies to destroy them. Both Lu Yin and Lan Gui had exchanged blows with these spies. This person was arrogant, conceited, and vicious. He had attacked many people from the 4 cardinal scales, but he had not killed them and had only severely injured them. In the end, he had become a training target for the younger disciples of the 4 cardinal scales. Even though this person's mouth was vicious, Lu Yin still admired him for risking his life to protect the source box array. He was much better than some people who did not mean what they said. As he watched Lan Gui absorb the astral source, the tribulation dispersed. Lu Yin looked around and saw that there were many more people around, and some of them seemed to be harboring evil intentions. Just as he was thinking about this, someone suddenly attacked and targeted Lan Gui. Lan Gui, you're dead today. Enlighters can be training targets for the younger generation, but now that you've become an emissary, we can kill you with our own hands. Lan Gui's face was haggard and his clothes were tattered. He looked miserable, but there was no fear in his eyes. A bunch of shameless old fools. You've been watching me all this time, waiting for me to break through. I'll break through today. Let's see if you can kill me. He then pulled out 2 short spears and stabbed them forward. The spears vanished as they entered the astral source universe and then reappeared in another direction to attack the attacker. Lan Gui's innate gift was the blue fish, and he had been able to roam the astral source universe when he was an enlighter. He was no stranger to the astral source universe, and now that he had become an emissary, his strength in all aspects had transformed. His star energy had transformed into astral source, and he was no longer suppressed by the emissaries. It was as if he had become a completely different person. However, his opponent had also advanced from an enlighter to an emissary, and this was an emissary who had been watching him for a long time. The attacker was an old man, and his gaze moved from one side to the other as he stared in the direction that Lan Gui had attacked. As the short spears stabbed out, purplish gold flames surged from Lan Gui's body. The high temperature scorched the void and caused the astral source universe to distort. The short spears melted the moment they touched the flames, and Lan Gui immediately let go of them and retreated. The old man reached into the astral source universe to grab Lan Gui. Lu Yin raised a brow. This person's usage of the astral source was very good. He could deal with Lan Gui without suffering any backlash from the astral source universe. This was a very experienced emissary powerhouse. Furthermore, these purplish gold flames clearly belonged to the undying bird bloodline, which meant that he was from the Zijin family. Lu Yin's only impression of the Zijin family was Jin Feiyuan, who had been defeated at the ancestral gazing pavilion. After Lu Yin's identity had been exposed, he had been ordered by the Xia family to take back the armed puppet, but Lu Yin had slapped him unconscious. That person's fate in the Zijin family would not be too good. Thank you. Zhang Daming, thanks for your support. I'll be updating at 2 p.m. It's been 3 days in a row and I'm too tired. Chapter 2184. The elder was from the Zijin family, and although he was only at the first tribulation, it was clear that he had been there for a long time. He had been keeping an eye on Lan Gui for a long time, and although he did not know the reason, Lan Gui would not be able to escape. Lan Gui was burned by the purple gold flames and was forced to flee from Astral Source Universe. The elder sneered in front of him. Obediently help the Zijin family make a name for itself, and will grant you a quick death. Boundless flames converged into a palm that slammed down on Lan Gui. Lan Gui's face paled, but he gritted his teeth and transformed into a blue fish. He dodged the attack at an unbelievable angle and fled into the distance. 2 more people attacked in the direction that Lan Gui had fled. They were only in lighters, but they had power vessels, and they attacked together in an attempt to seal off the area. They could not attack Lan Gui, who was in Astral Source Universe, but they could still influence him with their power vessels. The elder's eyes trembled. "You still dare to resist?" Flames spread wildly and covered the sky. A purple-gold undying bird's cry could be heard as an endless sea of flames descended. It did not burn Astral Source Universe but only the void. However, the high temperature was unbearable for Lan Gui, and he had no choice but to appear. He coughed up blood as his blood was burned by the flames. The onlookers retreated. The Zijin family has been keeping an eye on this guy for a long time. He crippled many disciples from other families, including some from the Zijin family. The frigid Immortal sect wants to get rid of him the most. He's heavily injured quite a few of their disciples. The frigid Immortal sect can't bring themselves to send an emissary, but the Zijin family is different. This senior is a powerhouse from the older generation, and he's been keeping an eye on Lan Gui. He was the one who forced Lan Gui to break through, and he won't give Lan Gui a chance to escape. As long as Lan Gui doesn't break through, he'll follow him. Lu Yin frowned as he listened to the discussions around him. The Zijin family was being a bully. Although Lan Gui had his flaws, they had fought together and Lu Yin wanted to help him out. At that moment someone shouted, "Third uncle, have mercy. Leave him to me." Everyone looked over and saw the undying bird flying in the distance, transforming into a young man who quickly approached Lan Gui. The purple gold flames around him transformed into a long sword that slashed down at Lan Gui. Lan Gui gritted his teeth. Despicable. That emissary had not removed the flames and was still suppressing him, but this junior from the Zijin family. They had not joined forces, but rather they had treated him as a trophy. Lan Gui had been injured by the senior, and the juniors help him. This was a junior's reputation. No one in the same generation in the four-way balance could kill him, Lan Gui. In the end he was killed by a junior of the Zijin clan. This was extremely important to his reputation. Moreover, he had broken through to become an emissary, which was equivalent to killing someone of a higher level. This was also the reason why the Zijin clan had spent so much effort to keep an eye on him. It was not only because of the grudge between him and the Zijin clan. Lan Gui gritted his teeth as fresh blood flowed down from the corner of his mouth. He retreated with all his might. The young man from the Zijin clan's attack missed, so he raised his sword and slashed horizontally. The burning flames on the tip of his sword tore open Lan Gui's abdomen, causing a searing pain to spread from his abdomen. Lan Gui grabbed the purplish gold flaming longsword with one hand. His astral source disintegrated the star energy, and his other hand reached out from his astral source universe. Lan to be in to burn time. Half of Blue Ghost's body was burned, and the sword pierced through his body. Blood could not even drip out because it was burned by the flames. Despicable. Lan Gui howled. The youth from the Zijin family sneered. Remember, the person who killed you is called Zhou Xian. He then slashed out with his sword, intending to cut Lan Gui in half. However, they had underestimated Lan Gui. He had been able to escape from the elite disciples of the four-way scales so many times, and even the fourth young ancestor had not been able to capture him. This was also why Lu Yin had not acted. Lan Gui had long since used a power vessel. No one knew how that power vessel worked, but everyone had misjudged it. For example, that elder from the Zijin family had seemed to have burned half of Lan Gui's body, severely injuring him, but in reality, it had only burned his left arm. Zhou Xian was even more laughable, as his sword had only pierced through the skin of Lan Gui's arm, but it had not caused any substantial damage. Lan Gui had seemed to be on the verge of death, but when the elder and Zhou Xian had been careless, he had transformed into a blue fish and escaped. His speed had doubled, and he had even left behind a source box array before escaping. No one knew where he had gotten it from. The source box array activated and the surrounding void exploded. An irresistible force pushed the elder and Zhou Xian away. Lu Yin watched as Lan Gui escaped. He did have some tricks up his sleeve, but his luck was too bad. He could have escaped anywhere, but he had chosen that direction. Lan Gui transformed into a blue fish and continued to travel through the astral source universe, fleeing in a single direction. He passed by one person after another, but suddenly, a chill surged through him. He saw a pair of eyes coldly staring at him. The chill was not only from the eyes, but also from the faintly discernible sharpness that was like a blade or a sword. 1,000 meters in front of him, a youth with a sword on his back was looking at him. This youth was clearly not an enlighter, but he could see through the astral source universe and see Lan Gui in his blue fish form. Lan Gui felt a bone-chilling chill. He had walked the line between life and death far too many times, and he had been surrounded and hunted down. He was very certain that this youth had the strength to kill him, even if he was not an emissary. The words "junior ancestor" immediately appeared in Lan Gui's mind. He hurriedly turned and fled in a different direction while keeping a close eye on the youth, afraid that the youth would suddenly attack. The youth did not attack, and he simply watched as Lan Gui escaped. However, because Lan Gui had changed directions, he had been delayed for a moment, and that moment was very long for an emissary. The purplish gold flames burned the sky once again, and an indescribably high temperature distorted the void as it shot towards Lan Gui. This temperature was more terrifying than any of the previous ones, and it almost reached the destructive power of 2 origin tribulations. Lan Gui had just become an emissary and had been injured by his tribulation. Coupled with the previous battle, there was no way he could block this attack. He could only watch helplessly as the heat surged towards him. Behind the heat was a sharp sword that came from Zhou Xian. Lan Gui had to die at his hands. This clown had provoked the various great families, and if not for the 4 cardinal scales providing training for their disciples, he would have died long ago. Now was the time. Lan Gui's eyes narrowed as he stared at the sword and the heat. He felt as if his entire body was melting as death approached. Everyone thought that Lan Gui was definitely going to die, but the heat and the sword approached him, almost piercing his forehead. However, they gradually disappeared, and in the end, Lan Gui saw Zhou Xian's confused expression. What was going on? What was going on? It wasn't just Zhou Xian. The elder from the Zijin family as well as everyone else were also confused. What was going on? Lu Yin took action, and the tiny candle person stood on his shoulder. He used the Ian Evolution True Scripture to wipe out the Undying Bird's flames and the sword. This was the Unbounded Realm's Ian Evolution True Scripture, and no one could tell that it was him who had taken action, not even the emissary. Lan Gui and Zhou Xian were less than a meter apart, and they both stared at each other blankly. Zhou Xian stared at Lan Gui. "What did you do?" Lan Gui's eyes narrowed, but he did not speak. He turned around and left. Zhou Xian reflexively attacked, but his phoenix's flames could no longer rise, as they had been extinguished by some mysterious force. This caused him to panic, and he looked at the elder from the Zijin family. "Third uncle, what's going on?" The elder raised a hand to stop Zhou Xian from speaking. He looked around with a solemn and respectful expression. "I'm Jin Wan from the Zijin family, and I'm here to seek revenge against Lan Gui. If I've disturbed Senior, please forgive me. If Senior wishes to protect Lan Gui, then please speak clearly. My Zijin family will naturally give Senior face, but we still need to know Senior's name." Nobody spoke. The old man scanned his surroundings and saw that there were over 100 people around him. There were explorers, hunters, and enlighters among them, but the old man could see through all of them at a glance. Suddenly, his gaze froze on a single face. There was nothing else, as that face was too handsome and stood out from the crowd. Jin Wan stared at Lu Yin, and the youth who had blocked Lan Gui's path also stared at Lu Yin. It wasn't that they could see through Lu Yin's actions, but that he was simply too outstanding and good-looking. They could see through him with a single glance, and naturally they would check his cultivation. However, they couldn't see through him at first glance, which was strange. Lu Yin hadn't actually thought about hiding his cultivation. After arriving at Xian Academy, he would have to wait and see what he could do next. However, there was no need for him to pretend to be an ordinary cultivator. Since he had saved Lan Gui, he wasn't afraid of being found. However, he hadn't expected to be found in such a manner. Being too handsome had its disadvantages. "Dare I ask for your excellency's name?" Jin Wan stared at Lu Yin. Although his tone was polite, there was a lack of respect in it. He couldn't see through this youth. Was he the one who had taken action? Although one's appearance could be changed, Jin Wan had lived for many years and could tell that this person was definitely a youth, not some old monster who had lived for a long time. Lu Yin blinked. How you? Did your excellency save Lan Gui? Jin Wan asked. Not too far away, Jin Zhongshan stared at Lu Yin and couldn't help but ask. Third uncle, it can't be him, right? Shut up. Lu Yin smiled. If you say so, then so be it. Jin Wan didn't understand. What do you mean? If it's not, then it's not. Lu Yin replied, it can be yes or no. It depends on whether you believe me or not. Jin Wan frowned. This person was speaking incoherently. Was he intentionally provoking them, or did he not care about them at all? He couldn't be sure. If this person had really taken action, then how had he done it? What kind of cultivation did he have? Where does your excellency come from? Perhaps you're an old acquaintance of my Zijin family. We can catch up on old times together, Jin Wan said politely. Lu Yin waved a hand. I don't have any master. I'm just a wandering cultivator, and I'm definitely not related to your family. Alright, I'm leaving now. We can talk about this later. Jin Wan's finger twitched and he wanted to stop Lu Yin, but he was also worried that this person's cultivation was much higher than his own. However, the Zijin family had been planning this for a long time. They had wanted to use the reputation of killing Lan Gui to help Jin Zhongshan establish his prestige and enter Zhou Xian Academy. Now that this person had ruined everything, it would be difficult for Jin Zhongshan to explain himself when he returned, and the Zijin family would become a laughingstock. Jin Wan hesitated. Jin Wan didn't try to stop Lu Yin from leaving, but the young man with the long sword who had frightened Lan Gui blocked his path. Lu Kei, please enlighten me. I'll be updating for 3 days straight. Thanks for your support, brothers. Chapter 2185. Lu Kei. Someone exclaimed in disbelief. Jin Wan also looked over in shock. Lu Kei? It's actually him. Jin Zhongshan was stunned. It's actually Lu Kei? Lu Kei was one of the top geniuses of the Sword Steel's Lu family, and he sat outside the steel all year round. He was one of the few who could comprehend the steel as he pleased, and he had lived through the era of the fourth young ancestor. At that time, Lu Kei had still been a child, and the leader of that generation had been Lu Hao. However, everyone in the Lu family knew that Lu Hao was only a genius who could compete with the fourth young ancestor. Lu Kei, on the other hand, was an absolute genius who had been placed in high hopes of surpassing the fourth young ancestor. Lu Kei had never appeared in public, but there were more and more rumors about him. The most famous one was when he had defeated Lu Lu with a single sword strike. Lu Lu was from the same generation as Lu Hao, and even if his cultivation was far inferior to Lu Hao's, he was still not someone who could be easily defeated by a junior. It was said that as long as Lu Kei wanted to, he didn't even need to use his sword. Many people guessed that he might have already reached the level of the fourth young ancestor. What kind of guidance? Lu Yin didn't understand. Lu Kei looked at Lu Yin calmly. I'm going to use my sword. Please enlighten me. The sword on his back pierced through the scabbard and floated in front of Lu Quebec. The sword looked ordinary, but there was an obvious gap at the tip. Lu Yin considered himself proficient in swordsmanship, and he had learned the 13 swords after fusing with Lu Qinjue's body. He had also comprehended the sword steel and learned the method to break through the 10,000 weapons. He had even fused with Lu Yi's body and experienced the Lu family's swordsmanship, but he had never seen anyone who could use a sword with a gap. When he had fused with Lu Yi's body, he hadn't had any memories of this person. Lu Yi's memories were too chaotic, and Lu Yin had only seen a portion. Why is there a gap in your sword? Lu Yin was curious. Lu Kei replied indifferently, My name is Lu Quebec. Lu Yin raised his brows. This was an explanation? In the distance, Jin Zhongshan clenched his fists. Lu Kei's name was unknown, but his reputation had long since surpassed countless people in this generation. Only the freaks from the 4 cardinal scales could compare to him. Everyone wanted to see Lu Kei's swordsmanship. Lu Yin was also curious as to how a sword without a blade would perform a move. Excuse me. Lu Kei tightened his grip on the hilt of his sword and slashed out, tearing through the void to arrive right in front of Lu Yin. Lu Yin was surprised. It was a decent attack, but this was only a test. Lu Kei hadn't actually attacked, and he had only wanted to see Lu Yin's reaction. The sword wasn't sharp, and it carried a hint of hesitation. Lu Kei wasn't sure if Lu Yin was the one who had helped Lan Gui, and he didn't want to hurt the innocent. Lu Yin shook his head. The slightest hesitation will cause the sword to change. Hearing this, Lu Kei's eyes lit up. It was indeed him. Thinking about it, he changed the direction of his sword. In an instant, all of his hesitation disappeared. It was clearly the same sword, but it gave off a completely different feeling. Not everyone could change their sword intent after attacking. Lu Yin nodded to himself. This person's swordsmanship was extraordinary. At the very least, when Lu Xiaoqiu had been Lu Yin's age, he hadn't been able to reach this level of swordsmanship. He had relied on the 13 swords which Lu Tianmu could compare to, but that might not be his true swordsmanship. Unfortunately, Lu Yin didn't plan on playing around. No matter how good this person's swordsmanship was, it wasn't very attractive to him. Lu Kei's sword pierced through Lu Yin's figure, but it missed. When it stopped, Lu Yin actually said, "Not bad swordsmanship." After that, he vanished. "So fast," someone exclaimed. Yeah, that person actually dodged in advance and left an afterimage in the void. Even Lu Kei didn't see it. He didn't notice it. Maybe he entered the astral source universe. Lu Kei's expression grew solemn as he listened to the discussions around him. It wasn't a matter of speed that had been affected, but rather the void itself. This person had affected space itself. How had he done it? Jin Wan's expression turned ugly, but it was fortunate that he hadn't attacked. Affecting the void and speed were two completely different concepts. He would rather have that person be so fast that he couldn't even see him, rather than that person being able to affect the void. If that person could do so, then that person was far from someone he could deal with. This was the memory district, where all the capable people in the starry sky of trees gathered. The Zijin family was the most obsessed with the memory district, as Memory Academy had imprisoned the undying bird and the dark phoenix, creating a special time zone that only targeted Memory Academy. The Zijin family had tried for countless years to enter the upper echelons of Memory Academy and rescue the undying bird, but they had never succeeded. There were too many strange people in the starry sky of trees. Lu Kei sheathed his sword and looked in a certain direction. Although he did not know where that person had gone in the memory district, the most likely place that person had gone to was Memory Academy. He had originally planned to directly challenge those fellows in Memory Academy, but now it seemed that there was no need for that. That place was worth entering. "Third uncle, where did that person go?" Jin Zhongshan asked. The crowd gradually dispersed, and only a few people remained in the area where Lan Gui had undergone his tribulation. They wanted to find tribulation crystals, as they would strike it rich if they could find even a little bit. Jin Wan replied, "I don't know, but in the memory district, you either have to leave Memory Academy or go to Memory Academy. You might run into him." Jin Zhongshan wasn't stupid. Even you can't see through him, third uncle. This person's cultivation is very high. Jin Wan looked at Jin Zhongshan and said, "You came here to enter Xian Academy. With your abilities, it'll be easy. Remember, if you see this person in Xian Academy, don't offend him." Although Jin Zhongshan was unwilling as his plan to kill Lan Gui had been ruined, he still nodded. "I know, third uncle. I can't offend that person. It's good that you know. You're much stronger than Fei Yuan. He's too arrogant and doesn't know how to restrain himself. He's narrow-minded. Back then, he lost to someone in front of Ancestral Gazing Tower and was even defeated by Lu Xiaoxian. You have to fight for the glory of the Zijin family again. There are too many strong cultivators in the starry sky, and our family can only survive in the cracks," Jin Wan sighed. Jin Zhongshan's gaze sank. Jin Feiyuan was his elder brother. When he was young, this elder brother had been high-spirited and had entered and left Shenwu Plain with the most powerful geniuses. However, ever since he had gone to Wangyu, his entire person had changed. He had been defeated by a Lu bastard several decades ago, and he had been unable to recover after returning to his family. Jin Zhongshan had worked hard not only for himself, but also for Jin Feiyuan. This elder brother of his had treated him well, but unfortunately, Jin Zhongshan had only been a child at the time and had been unable to console him. Now Jin Zhongshan wanted to use practical actions to cheer Jin Feiyuan up. News of what had happened here quickly spread throughout the memory district, and many people talked about it after meals. There were many guesses about Lu Yin's identity, as his appearance was just too outstanding. Lu Yin wandered around Memory Academy for the next few days, and 3 days later he officially entered the unique space that Memory Academy was located in. The space where Memory Academy was located was enveloped by a giant sourcebox array. It was similar to the Fifth Mainland's major world, but it also didn't seem like a separate space. In any case, even ordinary people could enter. Any cultivator had started as an ordinary person, and Memory Academy's students weren't necessarily cultivators. There were ordinary people as well. Memory Academy was located within the range of the sourcebox array. Above Lu Yin's head was a purplish gold flame that seemed to have come from an undying bird. In the distance, there were a few young students who seemed to be explaining something to the people who had just entered this space. Just as Elder Green Apricot had said, Memory Academy did not have a fixed enrollment season. Students could apply at any time and graduate at any time. As long as they had the ability, there was no restriction on their cultivation level. Even envoys could apply. Lu Yin looked around as he walked over to the students. There was a group of people in front of him and his appearance caused quite a stir. "What a handsome guy," a petite and cute girl said as she looked at Lu Yin with sparkling eyes. Many people were also looking at Lu Yin. It had to be said that Yu Hao's appearance was indeed outstanding, and even the men had to admit that he was handsome. He was fatally attractive to many women. This was not a belittling of women, as it was just like how beautiful women were attractive to men. Opposites attracted to each other, but Yu Hao's appearance was a little too attractive. The students from Memory Academy stared at him in a daze, and one of the girls muttered to herself, "This is great. With him joining the academy, we won't have to worry about being bored anymore." The male student beside her gritted his teeth. "We can't let him join us. Otherwise, how are we going to survive?" "Don't you dare!" the girl shouted, glaring at him. The male student snorted and glared at Lu Yin. "You're just an embroidered pillow." It wasn't long before it was Lu Yin's turn. "What's your name? This must be your first time at Memory Academy, right? Let me introduce you to our academy." The girl immediately gushed when she saw Lu Yin. The male student beside her was annoyed and interrupted. "It's not even certain if he can get into the academy. What's the point of introducing him?" He then looked at Lu Yin provocatively. "Kid, what's your cultivation level? Let's hear it. If you can't handle it, then hurry up and leave. Don't waste other people's time." "Are you looking for trouble, Chin? This guy has been reserved by us sisters. Don't even think about chasing him away," the girl rebuked. The male student rolled his eyes. "Let's talk about it after you pass the exam. Nice to look at but useless. Rude, no wonder little Feng doesn't like you." "Nonsense, we're in love with each other. You're the one who's talking nonsense. Just wait until the end of time, little Feng won't like you." Lu Yin pursed his lips. "I'm sorry, but I'm not here to take the exam." They both looked at Lu Yin. The girl was disappointed, but the boy's eyes lit up, thinking that Lu Yin was scared. He pretended to be fierce. "Not here to take the exam? Then what are you doing here? Looking for trouble?" Lu Yin smiled. "I'm here to apply for a mentor position." There was a courtyard atop a towering stone pillar. It was very simple, but it was also very beautiful. This was the office of the Dean of Memory Academy. At this moment, Lu Yin was sitting quietly in the courtyard, drinking tea. Sitting across from him was an old man with white hair and a youthful face. This was Dean Wen of Memory Academy, a half-ancestor powerhouse. Dean Wen looked at the invitation and then sized up Lu Yin as if trying to see through him. Lu Yin coughed. Dean Wen put down the invitation embarrassedly. "Sorry, I'm used to it." Lu Yin smiled. "Senior Culinary God has invited me to try being a mentor. I wonder if I'm qualified enough?" Dean Wen smiled. "Since it's an invitation from the Culinary God, then of course you're qualified. Mr. Haoyu, you're young and promising." Chapter 2186. Lu Yin could not hide his cultivation from a half-ancestor. Fortunately, his death mask was not something that a half-ancestor could see through, or else it would have been very troublesome. He would not claim that he had gone through 3 origin tribulations, as that would be too exaggerated. Xian Academy had 2 half-ancestors and an unfathomable culinary god who could break through at any time. There was no point in hiding his cultivation in front of them, and if they wanted to attack him, Kuei Luo and the Fog Ancestor might not be able to let him escape unscathed. "In that case, Junior Haoyu officially joins Xian Academy," Lu Yin said respectfully as he stood up. President Wen waved his hand. "There's no need for so many rules. You'll know that us teachers and students get along very casually and harmoniously." "Is that so?" Lu Yin's expression turned strange and he could not help but look outside. The stone pillar that housed the president's office towered into the heavens, and the higher one went, the greater the pressure. Normal cultivators would not be able to reach the top at all, and this was done to prevent students from disturbing them. Xian Academy was an academy, and since it was an academy, it could not refuse a student's request for guidance. What kind of person did a student want to consult the most? Naturally, it was a powerhouse, and the president was a half-ancestor. In order to not be disturbed by the many students, he had to construct this stone pillar to prevent normal students from reaching it. Was this the casual and harmonious relationship that President Wen had mentioned? President Wen coughed dryly and called someone over through the Cloud Connect stone. He then said to Lu Yin, "I'll have Mr. Jing introduce you to the academy and the class schedule. He'll be here shortly." Lu Yin replied, "Sorry to trouble you." President Wen laughed. "Mr. Hao, you came all the way from the Azure District to become a teacher at Xian Academy. I should be the one thanking you." Lu Yin and President Wen exchanged a few more pleasantries. President Wen did not probe Lu Yin's identity, but Lu Yin did ask about Mr. Tang. "Are you talking about Tang Yao? Why are you interested in his domain?" President Wen asked. Lu Yin nodded. "My domain has reached the spiritual transformation realm, and I've come to the academy to ask Mr. Tang for guidance." President Wen smiled. "Mr. Hao Yu is a straightforward person. Don't worry, regardless of whether it's a student or a teacher in Xian Academy, the one who has reached the top is the most important. If you want to ask Mr. Tang for guidance, he will not refuse you. Even I've asked him about the Void Divine Realm." "Senior, you also cultivate a domain?" Lu Yin was astonished. Dean Wen replied, "You could say that. My Wen family dabbles in everything, and an essay can become an ancestor. This so-called essay isn't just about writing an essay. A person's life experiences can also be considered an essay. A domain is also a type of experience." Lu Yin had heard this sentence before. It had come from Wen Shixi. Now that he thought about it, Wen Shixi was still in Lu Yin's cosmic ring. If Dean Wen knew about this, who knew what kind of expression he would make? If Wen Yazi knew that he had come to Xian Academy, he wondered what kind of expression he would have. As he spoke, a middle-aged man with a solemn expression walked in. Lu Yin looked over, and the middle-aged man saw Lu Yin as well. He was astonished at how handsome this young man was. The first thing that came to his mind was that the academy was bustling with activity. Everyone was young, so the arrival of such a handsome young man would definitely cause a commotion. He didn't know which family was trying to insert someone into the family. He frowned slightly. He hated this kind of backdoor business. "Dean," the man said respectfully. Dean Wen nodded. "This is how you. From today onwards, he'll be a teacher of the academy. Show him around and explain the academy's classes and living quarters to him. Right, arrange for him to sit between Mr. Tang and Mr. Wen." Mr. Jing was surprised. "Mentor? So young?" He took a deep look at Lu Yin. He couldn't see through his cultivation, so he hadn't gotten in through the back door. "Arranged between Mr. Tang and Mr. Wen? That's not good. The teacher's living quarters are arranged according to order, and there's an empty space next to Mr. Wen. If you arrange for him to sit between Mr. Tang and Mr. Wen, then Mr. Wen will have to move a little." Dean Wen replied, "It's fine. Just let Mr. Wen move a little. He'll be happy to see such a handsome young man, huh?" Lu Yin blinked. What did he mean? Mr. Zheng was speechless. "All right, I'll talk to Mr. Wen." He then gestured for Lu Yin to follow him. "Mr. Hao Yu, I'll show you around the academy. Please." Lu Yin politely replied, "Sorry to trouble you, Mr. Zheng." "You're welcome." Mr. Zheng didn't smile as he led Lu Yin away from the pillar. Dean Wen fell into deep thought as he watched the two leave. This young man was related to Kue Luo, and he was indeed very young, but he already had such a high cultivation. Not even the fourth young ancestor had been able to do so. Hopefully there wouldn't be any trouble when it came to Kue Luo. However, this person was a perfect match for Xiao Zhao in terms of appearance and cultivation. That girl had high standards and didn't like anyone else, so Dean Wen didn't know if she would be interested in Hao Yu. Elsewhere, Lu Yin followed Mr. Jing away from the pillar. "Mr. Hao Yu looks very young," Mr. Jing praised as he led Lu Yin away from the pillar and onto Xian Academy's path. Lu Yin smiled. "I just look young and old. I can't compare to these students." Mr. Jing glanced at him. "Who's comparing you to students?" The oldest of these students was in their 30s and some were even in their teens. If Lu Yin could really compare to these students, then he would be a freak, and even Mr. Jing couldn't see through his cultivation. Mr. Jing took Lu Yin on a tour of quite a few places in Memory Academy. The academy was very large and it occupied the center of the Memory District. Its surface area was equivalent to a third of the district, and most of it was covered in dense forests that were rarely inhabited. Students could choose to live in these forests or near the mentor's stone pillars. That's right, it wasn't just the dean. Even the mentors lived on the pillars. After all, Xian Academy didn't have a set time for enrollment, and new students could join at any time. These new students all had their hopes for the future and their respect for the mentors, so they could ask questions at any time or try to curry favor with the mentors. Even the mentors couldn't stand it. However, each mentor had a different arrangement for their own pillars. Dean Wen's pillar could only be used by envoys and above. Some mentors' pillars could restrict explorers and cruisers, but they couldn't restrict hunters or enlighters. Some mentors' pillars didn't restrict anyone at all. In such situations, either the mentors didn't find it troublesome and were willing to spend all their time teaching the students, or they were too weak and couldn't stop too many students. Mr. Zheng had previously asked Dean Wen to move Mr. Little Wen away, but this was the reason why he was troubled. There were only so many pillars in Xian Academy, and they were all made of special materials. Only then could the mentors have a chance to display their abilities. If he moved away, then the arrangement would be given to the mentors who took over, which would be unfair to Mr. Little Wen. Lu Yin wasn't clear about this yet, but he would find out soon enough. He would be staying at Xian Academy for the day. The academy alternates between a fire phoenix and a dark phoenix to form a special hour. The fire phoenix represents day, and the dark phoenix represents night. The two never meet, and the alternation of black and white is the academy's daily schedule. As for the class hours, the fire phoenix and dark phoenix form 12 periods, with 3 classes per day. Now there are 13 actual mentors in the academy. If you include Mr. Haoyu, that makes 14. Everyone has 1 class hour per week, and I'll give it to Mr. Haoyu later. Mr. Haoyu can choose any class hour that he hasn't been selected for. As for the remaining 4 classes, you can have a mentor teach you or you can study on your own. The academy doesn't force you to choose which mentor's class hour, and it's all up to you. Mr. Jing explained a lot to Lu Yin, and Lu Yin listened without interrupting. His impression of Xian Academy had already formed in his mind. Freedom. Mentors teach, students learn and gain experience. According to the academy's requirements, you can obtain credits, and with these credits, you can do many things. For example, you can request to learn the academy's battle techniques, cultivation methods, secret techniques, or exchange them for power vessels. You can also use your credits to request a mentor to teach you on your own. As long as it's within the scope of the rules, you can do anything with these credits. Lu Yin was astonished. You can even request a mentor to teach you on your own? Mr. Jing nodded. These are the rules of Xian Academy and the mentors can't refuse. Of course, the benefits are also great. Students can request the mentors for credits and the mentors. He paused and looked at Lu Yin seriously. You can request the dean to do something for you. Lu Yin's eyes widened with anticipation. This was interesting. The dean was a half-step ancestor and he was considered one of the top figures in the cosmic tree realm. Requesting the dean to do something? What couldn't he do? The sound of the wind could be heard nearby, and Mr. Zheng and Lu Yin looked over to see a few figures flitting past, as if they were chasing something. At the very front was a creature that looked like a monkey, and it was making faces at the people behind it as it ran. Catch it. You'll be rewarded if you catch it. A girl shouted, and a few youths rushed out from behind her to chase after the monkey. The group quickly passed by. Mr. Zheng looked at Lu Yin. Mr. Haoyu, do you have any questions about the rules regarding credits? Lu Yin smiled. Of course not. Since I've joined the academy, I'll follow the rules. Mr. Zheng was satisfied. He actually didn't like Lu Yin as this person was too young and too good-looking. He wasn't suitable to teach in the academy, but since this was the dean's arrangement, he could only follow it. Xian Academy was an academy and it had the most students. Mr. Zheng was showing Lu Yin around, so it was normal for him to run into students. But then the situation changed. Ever since they saw Lu Yin, a group of female students had followed behind him with shining eyes. Mr. Zheng scolded them many times, but it was useless. Lu Yin found this funny. Mr. Zheng reminded him, Mr. Haoyu, as a mentor, you must pay attention to your ethics. Xian Academy has been running for many years and there has never been any scandals. I hope that Mr. Haoyu can strictly manage himself. Lu Yin wasn't angry. Don't worry, Mr. Zheng. I'm a mentor and I have my own ethics. Mr. Zheng felt that he had spoken too harshly, as Lu Yin hadn't done anything wrong. He thought about it and apologized. My apologies, Mr. Haoyu. I was too harsh. Lu Yin smiled. Mr. Zheng is strict with himself and you're a good mentor. You've also shown this junior the reason why Xian Academy can continue and develop. There's nothing too harsh about it. Mr. Zheng nodded and reminisced. Our ancestors passed down the torch and the academy nurtured talents. Countless graduates died on the front lines against the Eternals. Xian Academy doesn't have many goals other than to nurture more talents for the human race. That's all. Chapter 2187. Lu Yin's heart skipped a beat. Mr. Zheng, I heard that the relationship between the academy and the 4 cardinal scales has improved? Mr. Zheng frowned. Mr. Haoyu, I'll take you to see the 18 horizontal arrays. That's a specialty of Xian Academy. Anyone who comes to the academy, regardless of whether they're a student or a mentor, will challenge them. The 18 horizontal arrays are famous throughout the astral tree realm, and once you pass through them, your name will resound greatly. Many students will also want to attend your classes in the future. Lu Yin watched the man leave. Was he unwilling to speak further? It seemed that things had changed. The 4 cardinal scales must be putting a lot of pressure on Xian Academy. Mr. Haoyu, what are you good at? Mr. Zheng asked as they made their way to the 18 horizontal arrays. Lu Yin was stunned. Good at? Mr. Zheng replied, of course. As a mentor, I naturally have to teach my students what I'm good at. For example, Mr. Tang is good at domains and he's even cultivated to the Void God realm. Mr. Wen is good at literary prison, and many students come to my academy to learn ancient characters and cultivate literary prison. It's a very good offensive and defensive technique. Mr. Wei is also good at history so he can teach you. Lu Yin thought about it. Mr. Zheng, what are you good at? I'm good at physical battle force. Lu Yin's brows rose. Warring states. That's right, warring states. Lu Yin was shocked. This tiny Xian Academy was filled with hidden dragons and crouching tigers. Mr. Tang's domain was at the Void God realm, and Mr. Zheng's warring states was at the pinnacle of these 2 powers. They were only 2 mentors and there was still a half-ancestor above them. The academy itself also had secret techniques, source box arrays, lock breaking, and so on. Xian Academy was indeed the largest academy in the astral tree realm. It was no wonder that even the 4 cardinal scales wanted to send their disciples here. Lu Yin thought about it. I'm good at giving pointers. I can see the flaws in other people's battle techniques more clearly. Mr. Zheng was astonished. Good at giving pointers? This was not a casual remark. Could he see through other people's battle techniques? This was Xian Academy. Many of the students who came here to study were disciples of great clans and sections. Now there were even geniuses from the 4 cardinal scales here. They were all learning the combat skills and cultivation methods of their own clans, which were among the best in the starry sky of trees. Even the dean did not dare to boast. However, Mr. Zheng did not say much. His responsibility was to tell this person about the situation at Xian Academy. As for how this person would behave in the future, that was his own business. It was not as if Xian Academy had never fired a teacher. As they spoke, the 2 of them used their star emissary cultivation to tear through the void and move. After half a day, they arrived at a place surrounded by several mountain peaks. The peaks were tall, but the center was empty. At the bottom was a lake which was quite a distance away from the peak. And in front of him, there was a golden line lying in the void. Mr. Zheng brought Lu Yin to one of the mountain peaks. Look, this is the 18 horizontal array. It's one of the ways that Xian Academy evaluates whether or not one can graduate. Anyone who can pass through 5 horizontal arrays can graduate. Generally speaking, only peak explorers or even cruisers can pass through 5 horizontal arrays. Lu Yin nodded. As expected of Xian Academy, only peak explorers can graduate. Other academies can't compare to this. He still remembered that the Astral Combat Academy required explorers to graduate. There was a huge difference between an explorer and a peak explorer, and the difference between the 2 was like 5 times that of a normal cultivator. Mr. Zheng proudly replied, those who come to Xian Academy to study are all elites, and there's almost no problem for them to graduate. What matters is how they graduate. Some people could have graduated long ago, but they choose to stay behind to receive more guidance. They want to graduate through more horizontal arrays and become famous in the astral tree domain. I heard that a few decades ago there was someone called Xianxia. How many horizontal arrays did he break through? Lu Yin suddenly asked. Mr. Zheng was stunned and looked at Lu Yin. You know about Xianxia? Lu Yin nodded. I've heard of him. Back then I wanted to go to Wangyu as well, but I was limited by my age and didn't have the qualifications to enter. However, I saw Xianxia at Zhongpingxi and his style was astonishing. He had to say that he was limited by his age or else he would have been part of the younger generation at the time, which meant that he was in the same generation as the four young ancestors. Long Tian and Xia Shenfei of the four young ancestors were both in this region of space, and if they hadn't reached 3 origin tribulations yet, then it would be too strange. As for whether or not Yu Hao's identity would be exposed because of this, it didn't matter. He had no intention of hiding his alias Hao Yu. Even if his identity was exposed, others would think that he was spouting nonsense and wouldn't suspect that Yu Hao's identity was fake. After all, not even a half-ancestor could see through his disguise. Mr. Zheng looked at the 18 horizontal arrays with a complicated expression. Xianxia is the most talented student that Xian Academy has produced in the past few thousand years. Back then he broke through the 17 horizontal arrays. Lu Yin's brows rose. That's pretty amazing. It seemed that the 18 horizontal arrays had been specially set up for those below the level of an emissary. Xianxia had been an enlighter back then, but his true power level had not been comparable to the fourth young ancestors. However, the fourth young ancestor had been able to rival an emissary, which meant that the fourth young ancestor had the cultivation to break through the 18 horizontal arrays. Lu Yin looked at the golden lines, which meant that once an enlighter broke through the 18 horizontal arrays, they would possess the power level of a peak enlighter, which would allow them to rival the fourth young ancestor. How about it, Mr. Hao Yu? Why don't you give it a try? Mr. Zheng asked with great interest. He knew that Lu Yin's cultivation was very high, and that he was at least an emissary because he couldn't see through the array. However, even if Lu Yin's cultivation was very high, he would still be able to see through the 18 horizontal arrays. Lu Yin waved a hand. If this array was set up for enlighters, then I can break through it. After all, I'm an emissary. Mr. Zheng asked. Mr. Hao Yu, don't you want to try? Lu Yin shook his head. At this moment quite a few students caught up to them. Most of them were girls and they had followed Lu Yin here. Mr. Zheng frowned when he saw them. Go back and cultivate. What are you doing? One of the girls boldly asked. Mr. Zheng, is the person beside you a new student? Introduce him. That's right, Mr. Zheng. We want to get to know a new student. Mr. Zheng, please introduce him. Mr. Zheng glared at them. Don't be impudent. This is the new mentor, Mr. Hao Yu. Mentor? The students were shocked. He's so young, so handsome, so good-looking. A few of the male students felt uncomfortable. Mr. Hao Yu, there are 18 horizontal arrays in front of us. Give it a try and see what you can teach us. That's right, Mr. Hao Yu, give it a try. Someone shouted, which attracted even more students. At this moment there were still quite a few students in Xian Academy. The main reason was that the cosmic tree realm was too large, and there were many large sects and clans in each district. These large sects and clans put in all of their efforts to nurture 1 or 2 outstanding disciples, so it wasn't difficult for them to get into Xian Academy. In the middle realm alone, there were more than 100 people who could get in, and there were more than 1,000 people in all 9 districts. Including the top realm, Bifrost Bridge, and the other cities, adventurers from the mortal realm as well as those from the outer realm and the outer realm, there were almost 2,000 students in total. However, Xian Academy had not been able to recruit so many students in the past, and there had only been a few mentors. Back then, it had not been easy for the disciples of the 4 cardinal scales to get in, as passing the exam was not enough. Xianxia had even used joining Xian Academy as a condition to obtain Xia Taili's power vessel. However, the current Xian Academy had truly changed, and the number of students and mentors was constantly increasing. Mr. Zheng scolded, "Stop messing around. Mr. Hao Yu is free to do whatever he wants and it has nothing to do with you. If you want to try it yourself." These words calmed some people down, but there were still some students who continued to jeer. These students had powerful backgrounds, so they were naturally bold. Most people would not be able to hold themselves back from being jeered at like this, especially when there were so many female students watching with gleaming eyes. However, Lu Yin had long since passed the age of hot-bloodedness, so he just treated the jeering as a show. It was actually quite interesting, and those who jeered even seemed to be jealous of each other. Gradually, the jeering quieted down as Lu Yin was not provoked at all. Mr. Jing glanced at him. As a mentor, if he could not establish his authority in front of his students, then it would be difficult for anyone to attend his classes. It seems like Mr. Haoyu doesn't plan on showing off his skills. Fine, let me, Bainan, demonstrate for you so that you can be mentally prepared. The youth who had been the best at jeering stepped forward and walked towards the 18 horizontal arrays with his head held high. Bainan? Lu Yin's eyes flashed, as he should be a disciple of the frigid immortal sex by family. However, he was not a direct descendant and was only from a side branch. Even so, his status was still extremely high and his cultivation was not bad. He was a peak hunter and he could be considered a tyrant in Xian Academy. At his age, even the Fifth Mainland's 10 arbiters were only hunters, and they might not have reached the Enlighter realm. Bainan took a step out of the mountain and headed towards the golden line. When he got close to it, one end of the golden line twisted, as if an invisible force was pulling it. Then it suddenly opened up and the other end smashed towards Bainan. Wind and clouds surged around Bainan, and he suddenly waved his hand to unleash Wind God's slash. The golden line was torn apart, and Bainan quickly crossed it and headed into the distance. Soon after, another golden line appeared and the first one quickly recovered. The two golden lines seemed to have a mind of their own as they attacked Bainan. Lu Yin watched this scene and was rather surprised. The golden lines seemed to have battle force just like a person's. The 18 horizontal lines come from Xian Academy's sourcebox array. Rumor has it that it was created by progenitor Wen. Each golden line is a stroke of an ancient character, and they can use all sorts of strange methods to simulate a person's battle, Mr. Jing explained. Lu Yin was astonished. It comes from a sourcebox array? Doesn't that mean that the sourcebox array that protects the academy has been activated, and that countless golden lines will appear? Mr. Jing looked at Lu Yin in astonishment. Mr. Haoyu knows about sourcebox arrays as well? Lu Yin humbly replied, I know a thing or two. Mr. Jing did not elaborate. Above the valley, the number of golden lines had increased to 5. At this point, Bainan was starting to feel strained. Once he broke through all 5 lines, he would graduate. Brother Bai, take it easy. Give Mr. Haoyu a chance to perform, someone shouted, reminding Bainan not to be in the limelight and to directly graduate. Bainan snapped out of his daze and hurriedly retreated. He landed firmly on the mountain peak and exhaled, his forehead beaded with sweat. Bainan, why aren't you continuing? Mr. Jing looked at him sternly. Bainan's lips twitched. This student knows that he's no match for you, so he wants to learn more. He then looked at Lu Yin with a provocative gaze. I've updated for the 4th day in a row. Thank you. Moss Honey Leech brother, thank you for your support. Chapter 2188. Lu Yin was amused. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that he could pass through 5 horizontal lines and graduate, but he just didn't want to graduate. There were probably many people like him in Xian Academy. Mr. Jing did not say anything else. Forget it, just treat it as an attempt. You may leave. Bainan looked at Lu Yin. Mr. Haoyu, shouldn't you broaden our horizons? Not every mentor can pass through the 18 horizontal lines. Of the Enlighter mentors in the academy, only Mr. Wu can do it. We hope that Mr. Haoyu can do it as well and add another outstanding mentor to our academy. Lu Yin smiled. I can't do it. Bainan was stunned. So direct? Mr. Zheng was stunned as well, but he did not say anything else. He waved his hand impatiently. All right, you may leave. If you want to pass through the 18 horizontal lines, do it yourself. He then looked at Lu Yin. Mr. Haoyu, let's go. Lu Yin nodded and left with Mr. Zheng. Some of the male students were disdainful. He's just an embroiderer. He doesn't even dare to try. Even Mr. Wei, who teaches history, tried. Although he couldn't pass through the 18 horizontal lines, his courage is commendable. This Mr. Haoyu doesn't have any masculinity at all. Yeah, he probably got in through the back door. If the students can get in through the back door, why can't the mentors? Some of the girls were unhappy. What nonsense are you talking about? Mr. Haoyu is humble and elegant, unlike you guys. You're all muscleheads and have no temperament at all. You guys are so petty. You must be jealous that Mr. Haoyu is more handsome than you. Bai Nan was unhappy. If we're talking about handsomeness, then Mr. Wei is even more handsome. Some of the girls were unhappy. Mr. Wei is clearly a woman dressed as a man. You guys saw through it a long time ago and you're all so attentive. Mr. Haoyu is still the most handsome. You guys are shallow. You guys are ignorant. You guys. Lu Yin and Mr. Zheng, who had long since left, heard the argument. Mr. Zheng was unhappy as this person had caused a conflict among the students as soon as he had arrived. Although it was a small conflict, it was still not a good sign. Mr. Haoyu, why didn't you try? That wouldn't be good for establishing prestige among the students, Mr. Zheng asked. Lu Yin smiled. Dean Wen said that teachers and students should be casual and harmonious relationships. Why do we have to establish prestige? Mr. Zheng shook his head. That's just the way we interact with each other. This is an academy after all. The responsibility of the instructors is to teach. If the students don't think that the instructors have the ability to teach them, why would they come to Xian Academy? Lu Yin nodded. Mr. Zheng is right. I've learned a lot. Mr. Zheng didn't say anything more. Today's scene would soon spread throughout Xian Academy. He really wanted to see how many people listened to Mr. Haoyu's first class. Could it be the lowest in the history of Xian Academy? That shouldn't be the case. This person was enough to attract a large number of female students. However, that would be even more embarrassing. As a teacher, if he used such a method to attract students, he would be laughed at. He wasn't targeting Lu Yin, but rather he didn't wish for such an unconventional mentor to appear in the academy. Xian Academy was currently in a precarious situation, and the slightest mistake could cause it to capsize. In order to prevent being seen along the way, Mr. Zheng deliberately brought Lu Yin through the astral source universe to a stone pillar. He did not introduce the place to Lu Yin along the way, and he did not even attend the lecture that he had originally planned to give Lu Yin. Lu Yin raised his head and looked at the stone pillar that towered into the heavens. It was similar to Dean Wen's. This is the stone pillar that Mr. Wen lives in. Wait a moment, I'll go inform Mr. Wen. Mr. Zheng then disappeared. Lu Yin stood under the stone pillar and looked around. It was only then that he realized that the stone pillar was slanted in the direction that they had come from. He stared into the distance and saw another stone pillar that was slanted in a different direction. Could these stone pillars be slanted like the center of Xian Academy? If that was the case, then from the height of the stone pillars, it might look like the edges of a birdcage that encompassed Xian Academy. Did the teachers live outside to protect the students? In that case, Dean Wen's stone pillar might be the centermost and also the tallest. While waiting, a girl arrived and gave Lu Yin a strange look before heading towards the stone pillar. Lu Yin looked at her and felt that she looked familiar. Where had he seen her before? He carefully tried to recall, but he couldn't remember. The girl looked back at Lu Yin before climbing up the stone pillar. Are you new? Lu Yin nodded and smiled. Yes. The girl looked at Lu Yin's face and blushed. She gently said, My name is Ho Qing. You can contact me if you need any help. She then gave Lu Yin the method to contact the Cloud Vision Stone and climbed up the stone pillar. Lu Yin felt strange as Yu Hao's appearance really took advantage of him. Hold on, Ho Qing? He suddenly remembered. Wasn't she Lu Yefei's disciple? Back at the ancestral gazing tower, Lu Yefei had brought Ho Qing along to meet Lu Yin and Long Kue. At that time, Ho Qing had even bowed to Long Kue. Yes, it was her. She was also in Xian Academy and she was an enlighter. Her appearance hadn't changed much, but her temperament had matured. She no longer had the vigor that she had when they had first met, and she seemed more like an elder. She was of the same generation as Lu Yin and the fourth young ancestor, so she could indeed be considered an elder in Xian Academy. Lu Yin suddenly looked up and felt someone's gaze on him. Was it that Mr. Wen? He saw a pair of cold eyes and a rather beautiful face. He was Mr. Wen Xiao? A woman. Not long after, Mr. Zheng landed. Mr. Wen is confirming with the dean. He'll be done soon. Just wait. Lu Yin was curious. You call her Mr. Wen? Who is she? Mr. Zheng replied, She's the dean's great-granddaughter, Wen Zhao. We usually call her Mr. Wen. Lu Yin nodded in understanding. Mr. Wen has a cold personality, and the dean asked her to give this place to you. She might have some opinions about you, But don't worry, she doesn't like to cause trouble for others. It's best if you don't disturb her, Mr. Jing reminded Lu Yin. He shouldn't be the one saying this, but Mr. Wen had asked him to. Mr. Jing didn't understand Dean Wen, but how could Mr. Wen not? When she heard Mr. Jing mention Lu Yin's information, especially his appearance, she immediately guessed Dean Wen's intentions. Thus she had asked Mr. Jing to remind Lu Yin so that both sides wouldn't be embarrassed. Lu Yin nodded. I understand. Don't worry, I won't disturb Mr. Wen. Mr. Jing simply passed on a message and didn't say anything else. I've brought you the place and I'll send you the class times through the Cloud Stone. Pick a class and I'll take my leave. Sorry to trouble you, Mr. Jing. Lu Yin smiled. Mr. Jing politely replied, I hope that Mr. Hao Yu can bring more talents to the Astral Tree Academy and pass down the legacy of human civilization. Goodbye. Goodbye, Lu Yin replied as he watched Mr. Jing leave. Half a day after Mr. Jing left, two figures came down from the stone pillar. One was Ho Qing and the other was Mr. Wen. She was the woman Lu Yin had seen when he looked at the stone pillar. Mr. Wen looked at Lu Yin. I've already taken what should be taken away. If you have any questions, just look for the dean. Lu Yin nodded. I understand. Sorry to trouble you, Mr. Wen. She left coldly and took Ho Qing with her. Ho Qing was very curious about Lu Yin. She had heard that this person was a mentor and he was so young and handsome. After they left, Lu Yin stepped forward and climbed up the stone pillar. According to Mr. Jing, almost every mentor had their own arrangements on their stone pillars to minimize the number of times they were disturbed by students. It wasn't that they didn't want to teach, but rather that the mentors needed to rest, cultivate, and have their own secrets. Furthermore, there were more and more students in the academy, and some of them weren't any weaker than the mentors. Mr. Wen Jr.'s stone pillar had been set up so that the wind would blow from the top down, and it would only cover a radius of 2 meters around the stone pillar. Within this radius, the wind from the top down would be enough to make it difficult for a cruiser to advance, and only hunters and enlighters would be able to ascend it. Lu Yin climbed to the top of the pillar and looked around. Sure enough, this was the case. The stone pillars were slanted towards the center of Xian Academy. Although the angle wasn't too great, they were too high up, so they gradually drew closer to each other. From the top of the pillar, Lu Yin could easily see the two adjacent pillars, as well as the central pillar whose top couldn't be seen. That was the dean's office that he had visited before. There wasn't a courtyard at the top of the pillar, just a simple stone house with a lake, flowers, and small animals. Lu Yin liked this kind of environment. Of the two stone pillars next to this one belonged to Mr. Tang, who had grasped the domain of the empty god realm, and the other belonged to Mr. Wen. Originally, Mr. Wen had only needed to arrange for Lu Yin to sit on the adjacent pillar since no one lived there. However, in order to fulfill Lu Yin's desire to learn about domains, Mr. Wen had specifically asked Mr. Wen to move it so that Lu Yin could sit next to both Mr. Tang and Mr. Wen. This showed that Mr. Wen was very important to Lu Yin. Not long after, Lu Yin saw Mr. Wen and Ho Qing climbing up the adjacent pillar. Although the pillars were adjacent, they were still quite far apart. At the very least, a cruiser wouldn't be able to see them, but Ho Qing was an enlighter, so she could see them. She smiled when she saw Lu Yin. Lu Yin nodded. Mr. Wen, what's Mr. Hao Yu's cultivation? Ho Qing asked. Not too far away, Mr. Wen began to arrange the stone pillars. I don't know. I can't see through it. Ho Qing looked in Lu Yin's direction. Maybe he's an envoy, but it's rare to see such young ones. If he's around our age, then his innate gift would be comparable to the 4 young ancestors. Mr. Wen replied, Don't worry about him. Is there anything you don't understand about the literary prison? Ho Qing reacted and quickly asked for guidance. The fire phoenix descended and the dark phoenix replaced the sky. Xian Academy was shrouded in darkness as a day passed. Lu Yin reclined comfortably on his chair and enjoyed the cool breeze at the top of the pillar. It was a little cool, but it was also quite comfortable. Mr. Zheng had sent Lu Yin his class schedule 2 hours ago, and since both days were full, Lu Yin decided to schedule his class for the afternoon 3 days from now. Thank you for your support, brothers. Chapter 2189. The class he had chosen was probably the last class of the week, and no tutor had chosen it before. After all, it was the last class of the week and most of the students had already made plans for the next day. It was unlikely that they would attend the class, and he had his own goals for coming to Xian Academy. He didn't really want to be a tutor for the rest of his life, so it didn't matter. He would stay in Xian Academy for a while and investigate what had attracted the four cardinal scales. Then he would think of a way to bring the students to train and interact with the scales. During this time he could also roll his die. Where had Senior Qingping gone? Had he gone to find Senior Wuxia? Did Senior Wuxia know about his junior? Where had Kui Luo gone? On a neighboring pillar Mr. Youngwon seemed calm, but he was also observing Lu Yin. She knew what her great-grandfather was thinking, and although he didn't want to interact with this person, he was also curious about him. If her great-grandfather had allowed this person to approach her, it meant that he wasn't very old and might even be around her own age. It was a bit mysterious for someone this young to be an envoy. Mr. Youngwon found it strange that this person hadn't set up any traps yet. The stone pillars were not only the residence of the instructors, but also a form of identification. Every instructor would set up something on the stone pillars, unless they wanted to devote all of their time and effort into teaching students. They would not set up anything on the stone pillars. However, there had never been anyone who used the methods set up by their predecessors. Lu Yin still hadn't set up any traps and had instead used her own, which she couldn't figure out. She had also heard that this person had been heckled by the students, but he still hadn't challenged the 18 horizontal arrays. Was there any point in being so young? A middle-aged man walked out from another pillar. He had a scholarly temperament and looked like a tutor. Lu Yin smiled politely when he saw the man appear. The man was stunned when he saw Lu Yin. He looked further into the distance and saw Mr. Youngwon. Strange, did someone else change? He slowly asked, "Are you the new Mr. Hao Yu?" Lu Yin's eyes flashed. His domain and the void god realm allowed him to feel the void tremble. This was the power of space which he had experienced during his battle with Hen Xian. He had also sensed Sky Blue's 8-star innate gift, which was a spatial memory. Lu Yin also knew the strategy esoteric reversal which was related to space, so he could clearly sense the changes in space. "That's me. Please take care of me in the future," Lu Yin smiled. Mr. Tang couldn't help but laugh. "Let's take care of each other." After he finished speaking, he looked at Mr. Wen, who was further away, and guessed what Dean Wen was thinking. This young man was indeed good-looking, and his cultivation wasn't weak either. Including him, Xian Academy had 14 teachers and 2 deans. However, there were 15 stone pillars surrounding the academy. The dean's stone pillar was in the center. There was also an honorary dean who did not live in the academy. This meant that even if he came, there would still be an empty stone pillar. Now that a day had passed, many instructors had returned to the stone pillars to rest. Lu Yin did not look at the other pillars, as the adjacent pillars were visible to the naked eye. If he were to look at the other pillars, he would have to use some methods which would be impolite. In any case, there were only so many instructors. He could always get to know them. The night passed in silence, and the next day, Lu Yin went to the Virtuous Memory Library. There were many ancient books here and he was looking forward to reading them. Unfortunately, he was restricted. "Sir, you need credits to read the books in the library." The old man smiled as he stopped Lu Yin. Lu Yin blinked. "I'm a mentor." "Yes, the new Mr. Hao Yu," the old man said with a smile. "Mentor," Lu Yin said gloomily. "You need credits to read books?" The old man smiled. "Didn't anyone tell you? Students can use credits to do certain things within the scope of the academy's rules, and mentors need to do the same. For example, in this library, students can only read up to 2 levels and mentors can go up to 5. However, if you want to go any further, you need credits. By the way, there are secret techniques on the top level that anyone can learn as long as they have enough credits." Lu Yin was shocked. Secret techniques were just casually thrown here? Then how do I earn credits? Lu Yin asked. The old man pointed downwards. The 9th book in the 5th row on the 3rd level. It records the experiences of a mentor who once earned credits. You can take a look. Lu Yin nodded and went downstairs. According to the old man's instructions, he really did find the book. He flipped through it and quickly finished reading it. Some mentors earned credits in the same way as students, such as participating in the backside battlefield to gain merit, catching human traitors, or gaining the respect of the students. According to the book, this mentor wasn't very strong and was probably afraid of death, so he didn't dare to go to the backside battlefield. His method of earning credits was a little strange. He was a babysitter. He was the babysitter of every promising student and would immediately appear whenever a student had even the slightest doubt. He would prepare whatever the student needed, and over time he was loved and respected by many students. Some simple-minded students even called him mentor, which allowed him to earn a huge amount of credits. After all, this was an academy, and being a mentor was definitely the greatest achievement. As for what these credits were used for, it wasn't written in the book. Lu Yin was disgusted by this method, and he suddenly thought of Ku Wei. Wasn't this just flattering the students? It was a little tiring, but if this book could be published and placed in this library, then it must be very effective. If any student is willing to call you mentor, the old man guarding the library said as he swept the floor. He then reminded Lu Yin, by the way, don't threaten or tempt him. The dean can tell who's sincere and who's not. Lu Yin put down the book. This method is too tiring. The old man laughed and continued sweeping the floor without saying anything else. After a while, Lu Yin looked at the time and saw that it was almost time for the next class to begin. The instructor was Mr. Huai, a Pekin lighter who had been at Xian Academy for more than 10 years. His biggest headache right now was not knowing what to teach. Every instructor in Xian Academy had a different place to teach. After all, the academy was too big, and even if there were 10 times more instructors, each instructor would still be able to teach in their own area. Lu Yin hurried over to where Mr. Huai was teaching, which was a dense forest. Mr. Huai liked the feeling of winding paths leading to seclusion, but Lu Yin felt that it might have been because there were too few students and he was afraid of embarrassing himself by choosing such a place. No matter how few people there were, it wouldn't be obvious. There were only about 50 students in Mr. Huai's class, and they were scattered throughout the forest. They listened with great interest, but Mr. Huai's main topic was how to break through to the Limiter realm. The Limiter realm was a term that had disappeared from Lu Yin's life for a very long time. His current cultivation was too far away from the Limiter realm, and he had not expected to hear it here. Breaking through to the Limiter realm requires. Mr. Huai's brows danced as he lectured excitedly on a very large tree in the forest. It was as if many people were listening to his lecture, and even Lu Yin felt some admiration for him. 4 hours later, the students dispersed. Mr. Huai saw Lu Yin and enthusiastically approached him. You must be Mr. Haoyu, right? I didn't expect you to come and watch my lecture. Lu Yin smiled. I'm new here and didn't know what to teach, so I came to take a look. Mr. Huai smiled wryly. Mr. Haoyu saw it. There were very few students, so I've embarrassed myself. Lu Yin replied, Mr. Huai's lecture was very good. Why are there so few students? Mr. Huai was helpless, and he brought Lu Yin to the side and poured him a cup of tea. Many of the students in Xian Academy have extraordinary backgrounds. I'm only an enlighter and a wandering cultivator, so I can't teach them anything. In the beginning, I couldn't even count the number of students I could teach with one hand. I had no choice as I could only teach Limiters. After all, not all of the students who come to Xian Academy are from large families, and there are wandering cultivators as well. There are also many students who have yet to reach the Limiter realm. Otherwise, I would have been expelled. Mr. Huai did not continue, but Lu Yin could guess that Xian Academy would not allow anyone to stay here for free. But Mr. Haoyu definitely isn't worried about that. You must be an envoy, right? Mr. Huai probed carefully. Lu Yin did not hide anything. I just broke through not too long ago. Mr. Huai was envious. There aren't many envoy instructors in Xian Academy. Once word gets out, all of the students will gather here. They're not on the same level as us. Lu Yin replied, Mr. Huai, there's no need to be so modest. I can see that you're about to break through. Mr. Huai shook his head. It's just a short distance. Breaking through isn't that easy. Over the next 2 days, Lu Yin attended a few more instructors' classes, and all of them were enlighters. These instructors all took a different approach, either talking about very basic knowledge or talking about the key points of cultivation. They were always able to attract some students. It wasn't until the morning of the 3rd day that Lu Yin saw Mr. Tang teach a class. The number of students was far greater than the enlighters. Lu Yin wondered if all of the academy's students had come. It was during Mr. Tang's class that he saw the majority of the academy's students. Some of them were truly gifted, and although they were very young, their cultivations were very high. There were even a few who had reached the hunter realm at such a young age, and they were very close to the 10 arbiters. Lu Yin did not show himself as his appearance would have easily caused a commotion and disrupted Mr. Tang's class. Hey, did you hear? There's a very, very handsome instructor in our academy. His name is Hao Yu and he has a very nice name. The girl next to her hurried over. I heard about it too. Mr. Hao Yu has a very nice name and I want to attend his class. I checked and Mr. Hao Yu's class will be held this afternoon. It's not far from here. That's great, the academy should find more instructors like him. Look at Mr. Huai's instructors, what can they do? They're just there to make up the numbers. That's right, I broke through to the Lamita realm a long time ago. I don't need him to lecture me. Lu Yin heard this and was left speechless. If Mr. Huai heard this, he would definitely be angered to death. You can't talk about Huai like that. Not far away, an honest-looking fatty anxiously tried to say something. Quite a few people around him laughed. Mr. Huai, I'm dying of anxiety. Can't you just say it all in one breath? A girl teased. The fatty's face turned red. Huai. Mr. Huai, a male student interrupted with a laugh. The fatty felt wronged. Mr. Huai is very, very serious. I like to listen to his classes. If you like it, then go. What are you doing here? Someone teased. The fatty's face turned red and he wanted to argue, but he could not say anything. Chapter 2190. Suddenly, a cry came from afar and everyone looked over. It's Qing Feng. Brother Qing Feng is here. The moment this was said, the students fell silent and they all looked in the same direction. They saw a slender man walking over with a warm smile. His arrival attracted the attention of many students. Lu Yin looked over and raised an eyebrow. Another genius had arrived. This Qing Feng was young, but he was an enlighter who could rival the 10 arbiters. Brother Qing Feng is so handsome. He's senior Qingxin's disciple, and he's one of the few people who can rival Xia Shengguang and Wang Xiaofan. A girl crossed her arms in admiration. I wonder who's more handsome, Mr. Hao Yu or Brother Qing Feng? I want to know too. Lu Yin was astonished. Superintendent Qingxin's disciple? He looked deeply at Qing Feng. Even within the academy there were different factions. Qing Feng naturally represented the humble school, and Wang Xiaofan immediately knew who the Xia Shengguang that the girls were talking about was. Soon after, Mr. Tang arrived and began to talk about domain cultivation. His lectures were all very basic, and since someone like Qing Feng had arrived, it was only natural for him to ask questions. Lu Yin had not expected that Qing Feng's questions would be similar to his own, which meant that Qing Feng had also reached the realm of spiritual transformation with the domain. Although it had been a few decades, Lu Yin had been blank for 20 years. Excluding those 20 years, he and Qing Feng were about the same level, so it was not strange for their domain cultivation to be similar. Not only did the students enjoy Mr. Tang's lectures, but Lu Yin also enjoyed them. One of his goals in coming to Xian Academy was to learn about the domain void spirit realm. However, such lectures were not very effective, so he would have to wait until he became more familiar with Mr. Tang before consulting him in private. 4 hours later, Mr. Tang left and his lecture ended. It was Lu Yin's turn for the next class. Lu Yin arrived early and chose to sit beside a lake. There was a huge lake in Xian Academy, and although it was called a lake, it was actually large enough to contain a star. Over the past few days, aside from listening to the other instructors' lectures, Lu Yin had also been searching through the library for content that he needed to teach. Finally, he found something that the other instructors had not taught him before. Xian Academy's lake was very beautiful, and it was even more dazzling under the violet flames of the phoenix. It was a place for many students to cultivate their spirits. Lu Yin's class wasn't hard to find, and his first class attracted many students. It wasn't for any other reason than his looks. Most of the girls in the academy had heard about him, and the boys naturally wanted to see just how handsome he was to attract so many girls. It wasn't just the students. Mr. Zheng was there as well, curious about what Lu Yin was going to talk about. Students were free to choose which instructor they wanted to listen to, and the instructors were free to choose what they wanted to talk about. There was no need to inform the academy in advance. The students came in 2s and 3s. Even the stuttering fatty came. He respected every teacher. The number of people who came to the class this time was not much less than Mr. Tang's class, but their mentality was completely different. Most of the girls were excited while the boys came with the mentality of finding fault. Bai Nan came with a group of underlings. Brother Bai, this Haoyu is clearly just an embroidered pillow. We must make him reveal his true colors, someone said. This person doesn't even dare to break through the 18 horizontal arrays. His cultivation might not even be as good as yours, Brother Bai. Picking such a place for a lesson? Isn't this just a waste of willpower? The girls' discussion was completely different. As expected of Mr. Haoyu. Even his class location is so elegant and beautiful. Even if I don't have class, I'll still come here when I'm in a bad mood. Mr. Haoyu really understands us. In the distance, Mr. Huai heard this and had a strange expression. Why hadn't he thought of that? These girls liked this kind of place. It was romantic and beautiful. He had only been looking for a location that would not be awkward due to the small number of students, but he had not thought of this lake. If he had a class here, a few of the girls would have come. Since they came, they would naturally bring along the boys. What a mistake, a huge mistake. Young people were much smarter. More and more students arrived amidst the discussion. Lu Yin saw that it was about time and came out. This was his first time teaching and he was honestly a little excited. He had come to this region of space with impure motives, and he had even changed his appearance. Now that he was a teacher, he felt very conflicted. However, his conflicted feelings were quickly washed away as a group of girls shouted and looked at him excitedly. Lu Yin pursed his lips. This was his first time enjoying such treatment. If it had been Ling Ke, he would have definitely been excited. That guy had spent his own money to hire a support group. If Ling Ke had Haoyu's looks, he would not have to spend any money and would have a support group wherever he went. The girls' excited shouts gave the boys a fright, and Bai Nan's expression turned even uglier. The stuttering fatty stared blankly. This teacher was too good-looking. In the distance, Mr. Zheng's expression darkened. The atmosphere had changed, which was not a good thing. The academy needed seriousness and caution, not Zhongyang. Mr. Huai was speechless. When he had been young, he had not been this handsome. Atop a stone pillar in the center of Xian Academy, President Wen laughed. It's good to be young and full of energy. Across from him, Mr. Wen Jr. was cold. He's too casual. He didn't even try the 18 horizontal arrays after being provoked by the students. He's still using my arrangements. It's not good to be too mature. President Wen was helpless. Girl, you're the one who's too mature. Isn't that youth handsome? Aren't you tempted? Mr. Wen Jr. remained cold and did not say a word. President Wen shook his head. Young people need to be full of vigor. It's not a crime to chase after looks. It's just a form of appreciation. You have to act accordingly at your age. Those kids are very good. In their eyes, Mr. Haoyu might just be a painting. It's just a painting, Mr. Wen Jr. said and left. He raised a hand to suppress the cheers and coughed. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Haoyu, but you can call me Mr. Haoyu. From today onwards, I will be formally teaching at the academy. I specialize in giving pointers, so if any of you have any questions, please feel free to raise them. As for what I'll be teaching. He then wrote 2 words in the air under the gazes of all the students. Exploration. Teacher, a girl asked. Lu Yin smiled. Please go ahead. The girl gulped and looked at Lu Yin with sparkling eyes. Teacher, are you going to teach us about cultivation as an explorer? Lu Yin shook his head. The word, exploration, doesn't just represent the explorer realm. It also has its own meaning, which is exploration. Exploration? Many of the students were puzzled. Lu Yin continued, the universe is vast and it is filled with unknown mysteries. Things as big as how our continent was formed, and things as small as the origins of certain battle techniques are all within the scope of exploration. The goal of exploration is to search for the unknown and provide a reasonable explanation for it. Many of the students were at a loss. In the distance, Mr. Jing was also at a loss. Exploration? President Wen straightened up. Exploration was not a normal topic as it represented the unknown. Humanity had developed for so many years and there were too many unknowns. Countless people had not been able to find an answer, so how could this Haoyu possibly find one? This topic was too big, so where did his confidence come from? Teacher, are you going to lead us to explore the formation of this continent? Someone could not help but ask, their tone full of doubt. Lu Yin smiled. I'm not leading you guys. We're going to explore together. Bai Nan could not help but ask, there are too many unknowns right now and even the 4-way scales can't answer them. Teacher, can you lead us to explore? How are you going to explore? Can you tell us about the origins of the Fire Phoenix and the Dark Phoenix? The Fire Phoenix and the Dark Phoenix were present when the Academy was first established, and they originated from the Sourcebox array. However, no one knows why Progenitor Wen used the image of the Fire Phoenix and the Dark Phoenix to replace the Skytime array. Mr. Xing shook his head. Indeed, Progenitor Wen had created the Sourcebox array, but no one knew why the image of the Fire Phoenix and the Dark Phoenix had appeared. This was one of the mysteries of Xian Academy, and the Zijin family had continuously sent people to join the Academy in hopes of unraveling this mystery. Lu Yin smiled. The Fire Phoenix and the Dark Phoenix originated from the Sourcebox array. Since these images have appeared, then either the Sourcebox array was created, or it was Progenitor Wen's idea. Since we don't know, we might as well use this topic to explore. He then raised his head. The first step is to research the Sourcebox array. Many of the students were stunned and then quite a few burst out laughing. Bainan was disdainful. This person was just an embroidered pillow. Research the Sourcebox array? This was something that Progenitor Wen had set up, and one had to be at least an origin array master before they could even touch upon it. Even if they tried to research it, they would only be able to do so if they were at least a realm origin array master or even an origin heavenly array master. After all, Progenitor Wen had been a progenitor, and the Sourcebox array that he had set up was not something that an ordinary person could understand. Many of the girls were disappointed. Although Lu Yin was good-looking, he was brainless and boring. Compared to his looks, most people valued his intelligence more. Very few people liked an idiot like him. Lu Yin wrote in the void. First, he drew the Fire Phoenix and the Dark Phoenix. Then he used an arrow to indicate the suspicious points and their origins. One of the points was that the Sourcebox array had automatically created the image of the Fire Phoenix and the Dark Phoenix, and the arrow was a question mark. The other point was that Progenitor Wen had intentionally set up the image, and the arrow was also a question mark. These two question marks are the doubts that the student asked me. What we need to do is to explore. On one hand, we need to search through historical documents and investigate Progenitor Wen's past experiences to see if he is related to the Zijin family. On the other hand, we need to research the Sourcebox array that I just mentioned, Lu Yin said loudly. Since we're going to research the Sourcebox array, it's not just a single person's job. This research topic involves unlocking sourceboxes and even progenitors, and it's not something that can be solved overnight. Thus, we need to start from the basics. That's. Lu Yin paused and then wrote another word in the void. Unlocking. All of the students watched Lu Yin as he continued to write in the void. They quickly organized their thoughts and knew what they needed to do in order to find the answer. Although the process was simple, it was still an answer to a question that involved a progenitor. If they could really find the answer, then it would be very valuable. Even if Progenitor Wen had passed away, it would still implicate the Zijin family. Chapter 2191. Bainan replied, "That's easy for you to say. Progenitor Wen's experiences are too distant, and no one can find anything about him. Sourcebox arrays are even more impossible to research, and almost all of the lockbreakers are on the backside of the battlefield. Mr. Haoyu, you can't be thinking of using this topic to fool the Academy, right?" Many people thought so as well. Needless to say, if he continued to research this exploration topic, the people from the Zijin clan would definitely be attracted over. Even those related to the Zijin clan would come over. This should be enough to allow Mr. Haoyu to continue staying in Xian Academy. Everyone loved to be beautiful and liked things with good looks. For example, these girls were biased towards Lu Yin, but if he was just a brainless idiot, they would at most treat him as a pretty vase and wouldn't feel that kind of excitement. After all, it wasn't easy to get into Xian Academy. Lu Yin smiled and raised his hand, gathering the astral sources to form the origin opening array. A sourcebox array? Someone blurted out and looked at Lu Yin in shock. All of the students were stunned as this was actually a sourcebox array. Mr. Zheng's expression changed slightly, as Lu Yin was actually an origin array master. It was no wonder why he dared to claim that he had studied the sourcebox array that Progenitor Wen had set up. Lu Yin showed off his skills and many of the girls became excited. "Mr. Haoyu, are you an origin array master? Mr. Haoyu, what level are you at?" Lu Yin glanced at Bainan, who had an ugly expression on his face, and smiled reservedly. He should be considered a Daoist array master. Cries of surprise rang out once more, followed by all sorts of mocking voices. Many were mocking Bainan and mocking Lu Yin. Mr. Vast Jade, you're a dignified Savannah array master and you're still so young. Why can't you study sourcebox arrays? With Mr. Haoyu's abilities, he will definitely be able to research it and solve the mysteries of the college. Someone was unhappy. Just because he's an O'Hara array master, he can study the sourcebox array that progenitor when left behind? What a joke. A girl sneered. This is a mystery that's been around for many years. With Mr. Haoyu's cultivation, it wouldn't matter even if he researched this topic for hundreds or thousands of years. Furthermore, I believe that Mr. Haoyu will definitely be able to figure it out. Exactly. Bai Nan looked at Lu Yin. He had miscalculated, as this person was actually in Provenance Formation Master. Even in the Cosmic Tree domain, lock breakers were respected, and in Provenance Formation Master was a rare talent. President Wen was astonished, as he had not expected Lu Yin to be a Savannah Formation Master. A Savannah Formation Master? Interesting. Lu Yin smiled as he scanned the group of students. He glanced at Mr. Zheng in the distance and saw him leave. He knew that the academy was satisfied, so he said, exploration doesn't have to be limited to just one topic. After all, these are all mysteries that have been left behind for a long time. It's too much of a waste of time to explore just one topic. Students, you can report any topics you wish to explore to me and I'll choose. Exploration is a very profound subject. Along the way we will encounter all sorts of difficult problems and unsolved mysteries. We might even encounter dangers. Eliminating these dangers and overcoming these difficulties is also part of the exploration topic. Next, for the Fire Phoenix and Dark Phoenix topic, what we need to do is to learn how to lock break. If some of you aren't suited for lock breaking, you can look up information on Wenzhou. In the distance, Mr. Tang and Mr. Jing met. How is Mr. Haoyu? What do you intend to teach your students? Mr. Jing told him what had happened. Mr. Tang was surprised. An exploration project? Even I'm interested. The history of mankind is too long. We've experienced many eras and countless wars, but nothing has been left behind. It wouldn't be a bad idea to have a class that specializes in exploring these mysteries. Mr. Jing nodded. He's very smart and has firmly grasped the students' hearts. Even if they aren't interested in exploration, they will still occasionally come to listen. If it's related to Wenzhou, even a story can attract a group of students. Mr. Tang smiled. This Mr. Haoyu is indeed interesting. I hope he can find the answer to the Fire Phoenix and Dark Phoenix. Speaking of which, the Zijin family's disciples should be arriving soon. Soon, they're never absent, Mr. Jing said. Lu Yin's first class ended. Although there had been some turbulence, the ending had been very exciting. Not a single student had left midway, as they all wanted to hear about how Lu Yin had researched sourcebox arrays and the legends about Wenzhou. Bai Nan had wanted to embarrass Lu Yin, but in the end he had not succeeded. He had to go back and think about it. As the Dark Phoenix rose into the sky, Lu Yin returned to the stone pillar. The first class of his life was a good memory. The students were all very smart and they constantly came up with strange ideas. Some of them even came up with love stories that were so vivid that many of the girls believed them. This class had revealed his lock-breaking abilities, which were not bad. Beneath the stone pillar, a few girls quietly crept over. Sis, are you sure we want to look for Mr. Haoyu now? Mr. should be resting. Why would we look for him if we're not resting? Bah, I meant that we can look for him when he's resting. No, what I meant was... Enough, sis, lower your voice. Don't let others hear you. It's embarrassing. Just go up. Sis, why don't you go up yourself? You must be afraid that Mr. Haoyu has set up something and don't dare to try. I'm not going. Sis, you've become smarter. Of course. No, I've always been smart. All right, then I'll take the honor of being the first to meet Mr. Haoyu. First to meet Mr. Haoyu? Wait, sis, let me do it. Not long after, two figures fell to the ground. Sis, isn't this still Mr. Wen's Tempest? Didn't Mr. Haoyu rearrange it? I don't know. Logically speaking, he should have rearranged it. Sis, don't tell me that Mr. Haoyu is living with Mr. Wen. Look, this pillar was originally Mr. Wen's. All that talk about him moving away is fake. Yeah, why didn't I think of that? They must be living together. I'm so pissed off. Go. Sis, where are we going? If I'm not feeling well, those brats won't be either. Tell them. Yes, tell them. Rumors of Mr. Haoyu and Mr. Wen cohabiting quickly spread throughout Xian Academy, but the two people involved were still unaware of it. Several days later, just as Lu Yin was preparing for his next lecture, Zhou Xian passed the entrance exam and officially joined Xian Academy. Soon after, Lu Ke also appeared, shocking the entire academy. Many students were surprised by Lu Ke's appearance, as everyone in the same generation knew of him. His arrival attracted the attention of several geniuses who had been in seclusion all this time. One of them couldn't help but challenge Lu Ke, who defeated him with a single strike. Lu Ke's reputation in Xian Academy skyrocketed. A few days later, Lu Yin welcomed his second lecture, and the number of students was less than half of what it had been during his first lecture. During his first lecture, he had attracted the interest of many students by exploring the Fire Phoenix and Dark Phoenix. After a few days of cooling down, most of the students still wanted to focus on cultivation. As for exploring, what did that have to do with them? Those who truly wanted to listen to Lu Yin's lecture were either girls or those who wanted to learn lock breaking. The stuttering fatty came over. He wanted to ask some questions, but he couldn't find the words to speak. Sir, may I ask what battle techniques the academy has that can be used to lock breaking? The little fatty asked. Lu Yin shook his head. I've only been here for a few days, so I don't know much about it. However, I can remind all of you that if you really want to learn lock breaking, you should put in more effort into star energy control. This can be considered the first step of lock breaking, and it would be even better if there are students who specialize in domains. Sir, if there are source boxes, can we ask you to lock break them? A student asked. Lu Yin smiled. Teachers need to cultivate as well, but if you really want to lock break a source box, that's fine. However, students, please don't be stingy with your credits. That's great. Many of the girls were excited. Source boxes were not rare to them and they could earn credits from them. It would be wonderful if they could find Mr. Hao Yu alone. The lock-breaking process was very long, and the more they thought about it, the more they became lost in thought. Some of the girls immediately contacted their families and requested to use their source boxes. The class passed by quickly and Lu Yin felt very comfortable during it. Most of the questions were related to lock-breaking, and some of the girls also raised various guesses about Wenzu. Some of the guesses even made Lu Yin feel that their thoughts were strange. He had thought that the class would end peacefully, but at the end of the class, a girl asked a question weakly that left him dumbfounded. Teacher, are you living with Mr. Wenzu? Her voice was very soft, but it caused the lakeside to fall silent. Lu Yin didn't know if it was just his imagination, but the noisy insects seemed to have stopped. Lu Yin stared blankly at the girl whose face was flushed red. She seemed a little timid and he asked, "What did you say?" Everyone looked at the girl. The girl bit her lip, took a deep breath and shouted, "Are you living with Mr. Wenzu?" As soon as he finished speaking, all the students in the class turned to look at Lu Yin. Lu Yin was at a loss. "Oh, but you're living in Mr. Wenzu's place," the girl said. Lu Yin was speechless. Mr. Wenzu moved to the side. "You should know. But you still used Mr. Wenzu's arrangement." "I already know about it," the girl said stubbornly. She was certain that this was the truth. Lu Yin smiled wryly. "You're overthinking things. I've only met Mr. Wenzu once and that was on the day I arrived at the academy. You can't speak carelessly. I'll be fine, but Mr. Wenzu's reputation will be ruined." Someone else asked, "Why did Mr. Hao Yu use Mr. Wenzu's arrangement for the stone pillars? Mr. Wenzu's moving away must be fake. You can actually live on the empty stone pillars. Why did you let Mr. Wenzu move away? It's unnecessary. There must be something strange going on." Amidst the commotion, Lu Yin left with an exhausted expression. Being good-looking wasn't always a good thing as the girls were all too powerful. The noise gave him a headache and he couldn't even explain himself. Could he say that not changing Mr. Wenzu's arrangement was purely because he was lazy? Who would believe that? He was a Savannah formation master, and even if he didn't set up a sourcebox array, he could still use sourceboxes to prevent many students from climbing the stone pillars. He had many tricks up his sleeve, but they were all useless. Chapter 2192. Lu Yin rubbed his temples as he returned to the pillar, only to see someone beneath it. He raised his brows. What a powerful youth. A man stood quietly beneath the stone pillar. He was at least 2 meters tall and his entire body exuded an oppressive aura. The grass beneath his feet was bent in all directions, suppressed by an invisible force. When Lu Yin arrived, the man's sharp gaze swept over him, filled with an oppressive aura. "Mr. Hao Yu?" The man spoke. His gaze was ice cold, carrying an extremely strong aggressiveness. Lu Yin stepped closer. That's me. And you are? Xiaxin Guang, the man replied slowly. Lu Yin was surprised, but then he smiled. I've heard of you. You're the most outstanding youth of the Xia family in Shenwu continent, the only expert of the Shen generation. Xiaxin Guang looked at Lu Yin calmly. I can't see through you. Your cultivation might have reached the level of an envoy, but that doesn't stop me from challenging you. Lu Yin blinked, not understanding. Challenge me? Why? Wen Zhao, Xiaxin Guang said coldly. Lu Yin felt helpless. There's nothing going on between me and Mr. Little One. Then issue a statement and clarify in front of all the mentors and students of Xian Academy. Apologize to Wen Zhao and we'll let this matter rest, Xiaxin Guang said condescendingly, as if this was how things should be handled. Lu Yin laughed. I'm innocent. Besides, I've only met Mr. Little One once. Why should I apologize? I'm not the one who damaged her reputation. Xiaxin Guang calmly replied, apologize or accept my challenge. Choose one. Lu Yin looked at Xiaxin Guang. They were both from the Shenwu generation, but this guy was completely different from Xia Shenfei. Xia Shenfei liked to drink, and while he usually looked drunk and didn't care about anything, he could see more clearly than anyone else at critical moments. This person, on the other hand, was filled with a sense of superiority. However, the two had one thing in common. They were both extremely domineering. Regardless of whether it was Xia Shenfei or the Xiaxin Guang in front of Lu Yin, neither would allow anyone to disobey them. Student, there's something I wanted to say. You shouldn't call Wen Zhao by her full name. You should call her Mr. Little One. Lu Yin's smile faded. Xiaxin Guang stared at Lu Yin. Apologize or accept the challenge. Choose one. Do you not understand what I'm saying? This has nothing to do with me, Lu Yin repeated. Xiaxin Guang said coldly, don't you understand what I'm saying? Apologize or accept the challenge. Choose one. Lu Yin shook his head and took a step forward. I'll choose neither. He then smiled at Xiaxin Guang. I'm not good at fighting. He then climbed onto the stone pillar. Xiaxin Guang did not stop him. This was Xian Academy. Even if he was a direct descendant of the four-way balance, he could not act recklessly. It was true that students could challenge instructors, but it also depended on whether the instructors were willing or not. As long as they did not violate the instructor's ethics, students were not allowed to take the initiative to attack instructors. After all, the students here were not ordinary students. If a person like Xiaxin Guang wanted to attack a tutor, half of the 14 tutors of Xian Academy would not be his match. Xiaxin Guang watched Lu Yin climb up the stone pillar with disdain. I already said that you can either apologize or accept my challenge. You can't avoid it. He then headed towards Mr. Wen's stone pillar. He didn't want to hear Lu Yin's explanation. He only wanted to hear Wen Zhao's explanation. Wen Zhao was the woman he had taken a liking to. When he returned to his residence, he couldn't help but look at Mr. Wen's stone pillar. He felt that he had underestimated it. This time he was in trouble. It was clearly just a rumor that had spread from who knew where, but it had attracted someone like Xiaxin Guang. Xiaxin Guang was looking for trouble because of Wen Zhao, and Wen Zhao was Dean Wen's great-granddaughter. Lu Yin did not believe that there was no reason for this. Xiaxin Guang was too concerned about Wen Zhao, so he either really liked her or had other motives. Lu Yin didn't know if Xiaxin Guang really liked Wen Zhao. Logically speaking, this shouldn't be the case, but the Xia family had produced an infatuated person like Xia Shang. Nothing was impossible. However, this had nothing to do with Lu Yin. That night, Mr. Tang walked out of the courtyard and saw Lu Yin. Is Mr. Hao Yu in a bad mood? Lu Yin stood up. Not really. It's just that some rumors are giving me a headache. Ah, that's how the academy is. Otherwise, wouldn't it be less fun? Mr. Tang smiled. Lu Yin pursed his lips. These old fellows all like to hear about such things. He looked at Mr. Tang's stone pillar and saw that Qing Feng had arrived. Beneath Mr. Tang's stone pillar, Qing Feng leapt up. Mr. Tang smiled as his domain descended like a mountain, ruthlessly pressing down on Qing Feng. Qing Feng's domain appeared as well, and he climbed up against Mr. Tang's. In the end, he was drenched in sweat and bowed to Mr. Tang. Sir, this student has disturbed you again. Mr. Tang laughed. Your domain is becoming more and more stable. Your next step is to break through to the Void God realm, but this step is very difficult. I told you to take it slow and not be impatient. Qing Feng bowed again. This student wishes to experience the power of the Void God Realm's domain a few more times. Rumor has it that once one comprehends the Void God Realm, one can manipulate the void and forcefully strip it away. This student cannot understand such power. Mr. Tang replied, the power of space. If anyone could comprehend it, then there wouldn't only be a few void gods in the astral tree realm. You've already experienced it the last time, so you may leave. Don't come back for the next 2 months. Qing Feng was indignant and wanted to say more, but Mr. Tang ignored him and instead looked at Lu Yin. I saw what happened between Mr. Hao Yu and Xia Shengguang. You did well. Lu Yin smiled wryly. He's just an impulsive student. Do I really have to fight with him? I'm not good at fighting. Is that so? Mr. Tang looked deeply at Lu Yin. From what I can see, Mr. Hao Yu is going easy on him. However, as a mentor, you should guide your students properly and not be too aggressive. Mr. Tang is very suited for this job. Lu Yin replied, actually, I stayed here because I wanted to be closer to Mr. Tang so that I could learn more about the cultivation of domains. I didn't think that I would cause such a misunderstanding. There might be more students coming here in the future and they'll definitely disturb Mr. Tang. Mr. Tang laughed. That's nothing. Mr. Hao Yu, are you that interested in domains? Lu Yin's expression turned serious. The dean arranged for me to be next to Mr. Tang to fulfill my wish of learning about domains from you. You're exaggerating. Both mentors and students are allowed to exchange pointers in Xian Academy, so there's no need to be too serious. If Mr. Hao Yu wants to learn about domains, I can let you experience it more. However, to what extent has Mr. Hao Yu cultivated his domain? Mr. Tang asked. Qing Feng was curious as well. There had been many rumors about Mr. Hao Yu in the academy over the past few days. He was handsome and could mesmerize girls. His cultivation was unknown, and there were rumors that he didn't even dare to accept Bai Nan's challenge. His classes were exploration and he was also an array master. In short, there were many rumors about him in the academy and he was a very mysterious person. Lu Yin glanced at Qing Feng. My domain cultivation is similar to this student's. We're both in the spiritual transformation realm. If Mr. Tang doesn't mind, I would like to experience the empty divine realm with this student. Qing Feng's eyes lit up and he looked hopefully at Mr. Tang. Mr. Tang was stunned, but then he laughed. All right, since Mr. Hao Yu has spoken, then let's go together. Thank you, Mr. Tang. Lu Yin smiled. Qing Feng hurriedly bowed. Thank you, Mr. Tang. He then looked at Lu Yin gratefully. Every opportunity to experience the empty God's realm's domain was a rare opportunity. Although Lu Yin was an enlighter and an outstanding member of the younger generation in the cosmic tree domain, the pressure he faced was even greater than that of the average cultivator. This was because they were competing against top-notch geniuses, and the longer they were delayed, the more they would fall behind. He was competing against the heirs of the powerful clans and sects, and he didn't want to waste any time. Mr. Tang had told him to come back in 2 months, which was equivalent to wasting 2 months. Time was the most precious thing right now. The empty divine realm allowed one to freely manipulate the void and peel it away. Lu Yin had seen it many times during Henshin's battle, and that kind of control over space made him envious. He didn't believe that Mr. Tang had the same level of control over space as Henshin, but at the very least he could do it. There were definitely more domains above the empty divine realm, and that was Henshin's realm. Mr. Tang's domain suddenly erupted and swept across the 2 stone pillars, enveloping both Qing Feng and Lu Yin. From a distance, it looked like space had been enveloped by a transparent gas that could be removed at any time. Within Mr. Tang's domain, Lu Yin felt that space was different from normal space. How should he describe it? It felt like the fixed space had become unstable, and the so-called empty divine realm was like a key to unlocking space. Qing Feng once again felt the empty divine realm's domain and his eyes grew hazy. Although he could feel the void being distorted and peeled away, that feeling was unfamiliar to him and he didn't know how to learn it. Envoys could tear through the void, but the void was still fixed, and so was the space within cosmic rings. However, the space within the empty divine realm's domain wasn't fixed. It was as if space had been transformed into water. Yes, water. Qing Feng's eyes lit up as he comprehended something. Mr. Tang was flabbergasted. He had thought that Qing Feng wouldn't be able to comprehend anything in such a short amount of time, but he hadn't expected this kid to be so talented. It was no wonder why Senior Clear Dust had taken him in as a disciple. As he thought about it, he looked at Lu Yin and his expression changed. Lu Yin was actually fiddling with the void. Mr. Tang was stunned. Was everyone this talented? One could comprehend something the second time he felt the empty divine realm's domain, while the other could directly fiddle with the void. Given some more time, wouldn't he be able to reach the empty divine realm? Mr. Tang stared blankly at Lu Yin. This person seemed to be hiding something. Lu Yin hadn't comprehended the concept of space being like water like Clear Dust had. He only treated space as dots. He had experienced the scene of rune lines turning into red dots, and he had also comprehended the secret plan. Repentance, so he wasn't unfamiliar with space. At this moment he was only one step away from the empty divine realm's domain. It wasn't a step that was so close yet so far. It was just one step. He might break through this step soon, but even if it wasn't, it wouldn't take too long. Once he broke through the empty divine realm's domain, Lu Yin didn't know if there would be any changes to the reverse move and the secret plan. All battle techniques in the world evolved from one type of power, and that was the astral source. Everything would eventually return to one, and this was the core of the power in Lu Yin's heart. Chapter 2193. Any power system could be traced back to its source. For example, battle force and domains originated from the third mainland's master of ancient Tao, and above that was the primogenitor. Lu Yin had trained in all sorts of powers, and while they seemed very messy, it was just as Mr. Mu had said. One could cultivate each power to its peak. When he had first heard of this, Lu Yin had thought that it meant cultivating each power to its peak, but now he understood what Mr. Mu meant. Everything returned to one, and when all powers were cultivated to their peak, they could be linked together. The secret art of plan, reverse step, and the empty God realm. It seemed like space, but it could connect to time, reverse the void, see through the river of the void, and touch the power of time. Lu Yin's eyes went wide. Human cultivation systems had spread out from a single source, and all sorts of cultivation paths had appeared. However, in the end they still had to return to the same source. Lu Yin stepped out of the empty God realm and bowed to Mr. Tang. "Thank you, Mr. Mr. Tang sighed. Mr. Haoyu's innate talent is not below anyone else's. It's only a matter of time before you reach the empty God realm." Lu Yin was once again grateful. Not long after, Qing Chen woke up. His gaze was dazed at first, but he soon regained his clarity. He looked at Mr. Tang excitedly, about to say something. Mr. Tang raised a hand to stop him. "Go back and comprehend it yourself. Don't say anything and don't ask anything." Qing Feng suppressed his excitement and nodded. He gave Lu Yin another grateful look before leaving. Mr. Tang looked at Lu Yin. "Mr. Haoyu, as mentors we sometimes need to keep a low profile and lead by example to our students. However, there are also times when we have no choice but to reveal our talents. I look forward to the day when you do." Lu Yin humbly replied, "That's my personality. Perhaps I'll have to disappoint you." Mr. Tang smiled and returned to his room. Lu Yin exhaled as space, time, astral sources, death energy, fate, and all sorts of other powers revolved in his mind. Unknowingly, he fell asleep. The next day, a girl brought a source box to Lu Yin's doorstep to ask him to help her unlock it, but she only brought a 3 stars discerning elementary source box. The girl thought that Lu Yin would take a long time to unlock the source box, but it took him less than 2 hours to succeed. There was nothing inside the source box. It was empty. Most source boxes don't have anything inside them, so there are different opinions on how to use them. One group believes that they must be unlocked. Even if 99 out of 100 source boxes are empty, as long as one contains something, it's still worth it. After all, anything that can be unlocked from a source box is extremely precious, and it's something that even the universe would want to seal away. The other one believes that source boxes should be used to form a source box array that can be used on the battlefield, Lu Yin said. The girl looked at him curiously with her big, bright eyes. "Which one do you support, sir?" Lu Yin rubbed his chin. "As a Savannah array master, I'm more inclined towards the second method. However, I also feel that the first method is the correct way to use source boxes, which is a bit of a dilemma." The girl sneered. "Mister, you don't have a choice. I'll support the first option. I hope that someone as good-looking as Mr. can be unlocked and play with me every day." Lu Yin was amused. "Work hard on your cultivation. You're very talented and you'll become a lock breaker one day." He wasn't spouting nonsense as this girl had attended 2 of his classes. Of course he had only taught 2 of them and he had already seen the standards of the students during his 2nd class. This girl definitely had a talent for lock breaking and she wasn't weak either. She was a peak hunter and was comparable to the 10 arbiters. Right, it's already been 2 classes but I still don't know what your name is. Luin asked. Someone who was comparable to the 10 arbiters could be called a hero, and they were rare even in the cosmic tree domain. The girl was pleasantly surprised. Mister, you're asking for my name? Are you trying to remember me? That's great, I'm Nong Xinyang. Luin was stunned. Nong Xinyang? That's right. Luin was curious. How is Nong Xinyang related to you? Nong Xinyang smiled. She's my older sister. Nong Lai is your older brother? Luin asked. Nong Xinyang nodded. Does Mr. know them? Luin shook his head. I've only heard of them but I don't know them. Nong Xinyang was curious. Mr. looks like you're about the same age as them so you should be in the same generation. With Mr.'s cultivation you should be very famous back then. I'll go back and ask them if they know you. Luin smiled. Do as you wish. Alright, the lock breaking is done so you should go back. Nong Xinyang's eyes flashed with craftiness. I have more. She then took out a 4-star discerning elementary source box. Please, Mr. Luin was speechless. You actually brought 2. Hee, thank you, mister. I won't skimp on the credits, Nong Xinyang said happily. Luin shook his head and began to unlock the source box. Nong Xinyang heaved a sigh of relief and propped up her chin as she quietly watched Luin unlock the source box. He even explained the process to her as he unlocked it. She had no interest in lock breaking at all, otherwise with her status in the Nong family, she would have learned it a long time ago. She had only come because she liked this face. It was just too good looking. After another 2 hours Luin finished unlocking the source box, but there was still nothing. Lu Yin's expression remained calm, as the danger of this source box was completely useless against him. Mr. What else? Nong Xinyang took out another source box. This time it was a 1-star perceptive intermediate source box. It was octagonal and looked like a starfish but it was also very large. It was obvious that it would take a lot of time. Luin was speechless. How many source boxes did you bring? Nong Xinyang blinked. This is the last one. Luin said, I'm tired today so I'll only help you unlock this one. Don't take out any more. Right, thank you, mister. Nong Xinyang was very happy and generous, giving Luin quite a few credits. She had spent 2 years at Xian Academy and had earned a lot of credits, but she hadn't used them much. It wasn't just her. Xia Shenguang, Wang Xiaofan and the others were in a similar situation. Xian Academy didn't have much to teach them, so they either didn't have enough credits or didn't need to spend them. Qing Feng's credits were spent on Mr. Tang. This time it took more than 2 hours. This octagonal source box's danger was very unique, and it had a sweet smell that could kill. Luin couldn't even stand it after smelling it for a while, but it didn't cause any harm. The only reason it had taken so long was because it was large and difficult to unlock. The octagonal source box was unlocked and Luin obtained a seed. Nong Xinyang's eyes lit up. Great, it's the seed of an ancient sunflower. Luin was curious and tossed the seed to her. What's an ancient sunflower? Nong Xinyang took the seed and explained, it's a type of flower that grows on meteorites. It blooms wherever there's light and it produces a very sweet smell. It's an essential ingredient to make a type of spice. Is that the sweet smell? Luin was puzzled. Nong Xinyang rolled her eyes. Of course it's diluted. That sweet smell is like love, and it's a smell that many young men and women pursue. It's a pity that it went extinct a long time ago and I've only seen it in books. This is great, with this seed our seed garden will be able to grow sunflowers. Thank you, Mr. Hao Yu. Luin was puzzled. Nong Xinyang should have a lock breaker, right? Haven't you tried to unlock it? Nong Xinyang replied, there are too many source boxes and no one can unlock them all. There are very few origin formation masters, and they're all gathered at the back of the battlefield. Who has the time to help us unlock source boxes? Luin nodded. Right, let's go back. Nong Xinyang thanked Luin again before leaving. Before leaving she asked if she could ask Luin to continue unlocking source boxes. Luin agreed as this was a good opportunity for him to practice his skills. After merging with Master Hao Yu's body, Lu Yin's understanding of sourceboxes had increased by quite a bit. With his own accumulated knowledge, as long as he could unlock enough sourceboxes, he would become a true realm plane formation master. He still hoped that he could become an origin formation heavenly master. After Zhou Xian left, someone else tried to climb up the stone pillar, but unfortunately that person failed. Wen Zhao's setup made it difficult for even cruisers to climb up. Most of the students in the academy were still below the explorer realm, and not everyone was as powerful as Zhou Xian or Qing Feng. Mr. Hao Yu, Wen Zhao called out from another stone pillar. Lu Yin turned around and was surprised. Mr. Xiaowen? Wen Zhao looked at Lu Yin and said in a low voice, "You should know about the recent rumors circulating around the academy." Lu Yin hurriedly apologized. "I'm really sorry, Mr. Xiaowen. I didn't think that the dean would be so kind as to let me get close to Mr. Tang and help me learn about domains. However, I ended up causing a misunderstanding in Mr. Xiaowen's reputation. I'm really sorry." Wen Zhao replied, "I don't care. It's just that Xia Shengguang's matter has made things difficult for Mr. Hao Yu. I'm here to apologize." Lu Yin waved a hand. "It's not a big deal. The students are all young and hot-blooded. It's understandable." Wen Zhao was helpless. "There are some things that I can't stop, but I'll do my best to explain it to Xia Shengguang. He's too impulsive." Lu Yin hurriedly said, "Don't. The more you explain, the worse it gets. It's better not to say anything and just let nature take its course." "Let nature take its course?" Wen Zhao frowned and looked at Lu Yin suspiciously. Lu Yin found it strange. Had he said something wrong? Wen Zhao retracted his gaze. "Since that's the case, Mr. Hao Yu should take care of himself. As long as you ignore Xia Shengguang, he won't be able to do anything in Yixian Academy." Lu Yin nodded. "I understand." Wen Zhao returned to the courtyard. Xia Shengguang represented Shenwu Plain and the Xia family, which naturally attracted many people. Wen Zhao's worries were justified, as the next person to come looking for Lu Yin was another mentor. "Is Mr. Hao Yu here? I'm Wu Taibai and I'm here to seek an audience." The voice traveled to Lu Yin's ears. Lu Yin was astonished. "Wu Taibai." He walked out of the courtyard and looked down. He saw a familiar face. It was Wu Taibai, one of the 6th Mainland's Dao Source 3 skies. He was also a supreme from Shenwu Plain and was on the same level as Xia Taili. Why was he here? Right, the academy had a Mr. Wu who had broken through the 18 horizontal arrays as an enlighter. Could that be him? "Is Mr. Hao Yu here?" Wu Taibai called out again. Lu Yin asked, "Are you Mr. Wu? Feel free to come up." Chapter 2194. Wu Taibai stepped forward and climbed up the pillar, arriving outside Lu Yin's courtyard. He looked at Lu Yin with a strange expression. "Mr. Hao Yu has been in the academy for half a month, but I've never met you before. Sorry for disturbing you today." Lu Yin smiled. "You must be Mr. Wu. Please come in." Wu Taibai walked into the courtyard and Lu Yin calmed himself down and poured a cup of tea for him. "I've also heard of Mr. Wu's name. I heard that you're the only enlighter in the academy to break through the 18 horizontal arrays. You're truly admirable." Wu Taibai smiled. "It's not strange for us to be able to do it at our age. Many people have already broken through to become emissaries. For example, Mr. Hao Yu, you're an emissary powerhouse. You'll definitely be able to break through the 18 horizontal arrays." Lu Yin found it strange when he saw Wu Taibai. With Wu Taibai's innate talent, he should have become an emissary already. He wasn't imprisoned in Mount Supreme, nor was he in the 5th mainland that had been devoured by the astral source universe. Lu Yin estimated that the geniuses of the astral tree domain should have all become emissaries, but Wu Taibai hadn't. "Even as an emissary, I'm not confident that I can break through the 18 horizontal arrays. Mr. Wu thinks too highly of me and underestimates himself," Lu Yin said modestly. Wu Taibai smiled and sipped his tea, seemingly deep in thought. Lu Yin wasn't in a hurry, as Wu Taibai's visit definitely had something to do with Xia Shengguang. After a while, Wu Taibai put down his teacup. "Actually, I'm here to apologize to Mr. Hao Yu." Lu Yin was surprised. "What do you mean? I've never met Mr. Wu, so why would I apologize?" Wu Taibai replied, "Mr. Hao Yu must have met Xia Shengguang." Lu Yin nodded. Wu Taibai said, "I belong to Shenwu Heaven, and Xia Shengguang is the most outstanding descendant of this generation of Shenwu Heaven. Since Xia Shengguang was rude to you as a senior, I must apologize. I'm truly sorry, Mr. Hao Yu. Lu Yin hurriedly said, It's not a big deal, Mr. Wu. Xia Shengguang is just a student. Why would I bother with a student? Wu Taibai smiled. I know that Mr. Hao Yu is magnanimous and won't bother with such a small matter. There's a second reason for my visit. Tell me about it, Lu Yin said, even though he already knew the answer. He had already guessed that it had something to do with Wen Zhao. If that was really the case, then Xia Shengguang's reaction would be related to the Xinwu Plain. The Xinwu Plain had set their sights on Dean Wen of Xian Academy. Wu Taibai muttered to himself, It's not nice to say this out loud, but I still have to say it. He looked at Lu Yin seriously. Forgive my rudeness, but what exactly is the relationship between Mr. Hao Yu and Mr. Wen? Lu Yin frowned. Mr. Wu, you don't believe in the Academy's rumors as well, do you? Wu Taibai chuckled. Of course not. It's just that the headmaster has arranged for Mr. Hao Yu to stay here, which puzzles me, so I would like to know what Mr. Hao Yu's intentions are. Lu Yin stared at Wu Taibai. What does Mr. Wu want me to do? Wu Taibai and Lu Yin looked at each other for a moment before retracting their gazes. Mr. Hao Yu should already know that Xia Shengguang likes Mr. Wen, so Mr. Hao Yu hopes that Mr. Hao Yu can fulfill their wish. In return, Mr. Hao Yu can ask for anything. Lu Yin thought to himself that, as expected, the Xinwu Plain had set their sights on Dean Wen. This was interesting and Lu Yin wanted to be a part of this. The rumors are false. I have nothing to do with Mr. Wen. Even if that's the case, does Xinwu Heaven have such intentions? Lu Yin asked. Wu Taibai nodded. The Xinwu Plain doesn't like surprises. Of course, if Mr. Hao Yu is unwilling, then we'll have a fair competition. I'm here to apologize on behalf of Xia Shengguang. Wu Taibai's attitude was very proper and he did not threaten or coerce Lu Yin. It could only be considered a lure. However, the words Xinwu Plain were a threat. Lu Yin smiled. Mr. Wu, you don't understand why the headmaster arranged for me to stay here, but I can tell you. Wu Taibai straightened his body. Lu Yin said, A learning domain. Wu Taibai was astonished. A learning domain? Lu Yin nodded. My cultivation of a domain has reached the spiritual transformation realm, and I'm only one step away from the void god realm. This step is too difficult to cross, and the headmaster kindly arranged for me to stay beside Mr. Tang so that I can frequently consult Mr. Tang. You've misunderstood. Wu Taibai laughed. If that's the case, then perhaps we really did misunderstand. However, this is also a blessing in disguise. We know that Mr. Hao Yu is about to break through to the void god realm, and Xinwu Plain will definitely congratulate you on the day you break through. After a few more polite exchanges, Wu Taibai said his goodbyes and left. Before he left, he looked into Lu Yin's eyes. Mr. Hao Yu, have we met before? Lu Yin thought about it. I don't think so. Mr. Wu is from Xinwu Plain and I'm just an independent cultivator. Wu Taibai smiled and left. Lu Yin watched him leave. Wu Taibai was definitely not referring to himself as Lu Yin, but rather to Yu Hao. Yu Hao had married Xia Zhitong and she was from a side branch of the Xia family. She was also from Xinwu Plain, so perhaps Wu Taibai had met her before. If Wu Taibai confirmed Yu Hao's identity, then Lu Yin's place would not be so peaceful. That was fine, as this was exactly what Lu Yin had been waiting for. Xinwu Plain would not let him off while he was impersonating Yu Hao, and it would depend on whether or not they could do anything to him at Xian Academy. If Yu Hao did not reveal himself, then how would he approach Xinwu Plain? Lu Yin would wait for the four-way scales plan to use the Yu family to intimidate everyone in the Astral Tree realm. He had come to the Astral Tree realm with the goal of saving someone, but he had no idea how. He could only take things one step at a time. As for now, Lu Yin looked at the stone pillars and decided that it was time to rearrange them. Using Wen Zhao's method had already caused rumors, so it was no longer appropriate. Besides, if Xinwu Plain found him and wanted to do anything to him, Xian Academy's attitude would be crucial. Lu Yin's value to Xian Academy would determine their attitude when the time came. With that in mind, Lu Yin began to rearrange the stone pillars. The best way to rearrange the stone pillars was to use a teleportation array. It could transfer students without harming them, and it could also fully display his abilities as an origin array master. Lu Yin spent the next few days comfortably. Nong Xinyang did not come looking for him and neither did any of the other students. Instead, he went to the library to browse through the academy's books. The meager amount of credits that Zhou Xian had given him was not enough for him to ascend to the next level. Students often went to Mr. Yang Wen's place to ask about ancient characters. Lu Yin was also curious about the ancient characters and wanted to learn them. Wen Xingyi was the best choice, as his level would definitely surpass Mr. Yang Wen's. Right? Could they be related? Both of their surnames were Wen. Lu Yin did not release Wen Xingyi in Xian Academy, nor did he take out the mirror to summon the fog ancestor. After all, this was a place that even the four-way scales treated with caution. Lu Yin was worried. The third class began, and after the first two classes, Lu Yin was starting to get used to this kind of class. Jin Zhongshan arrived. The Zijin family had been investigating the Fire Phoenix and Dark Phoenix, which coincided with Lu Yin's class. Lu Yin was surprised to see Qingfeng here, but he was probably grateful that Qingfeng had helped him at Mr. Tang's place and had helped him comprehend something. Zhou Xian and the other girls were naturally present as well. Although the number of students was not as high as the first class, it was still twice as high. Many people wanted to see Lu Yin, as it was rumored that he was cohabiting with Mr. Yang Wen. Lu Yin saw the envy in the eyes of many of the boys. An hour later, Lu Yin was in the middle of a class when he accidentally came across some records regarding Wen Xingyi in the library. He talked about it and caused some discussion. At that moment, Bai Nan arrived, but he did not cause any trouble. Instead, he looked at Lu Yin with interest and an indescribable smugness. Lu Yin raised his brows. There was something wrong with this brat's gaze. He must have done something. Not long after Bai Nan, another person arrived, and Lu Yin finally knew what Bai Nan was so proud of. This person was Xia Shengguang, and he had probably come because of Bai Nan. Bai Nan sneered as he watched Lu Yin's endless lecture. Xia Shengguang was here. Let's see how you deal with him. Xia Shengguang's appearance caused a commotion. There were a few students in the academy who rarely attended classes, even those of Mr. Tang and Mr. Zheng. Xia Shengguang was one of them, and he was a direct descendant of the four-way scales. He had become one of the most popular candidates for the position of junior ancestor. Only Xia Shenfei's generation could truly be considered one of the four junior ancestors. However, the junior ancestor planet still existed, and even if one did not need to go to the sovereign realm to search for the origin item, the planet could still be used. However, it was still unknown when it would be used. This meant that aside from not going to the sovereign realm and losing the opportunity to obtain the origin item, Xia Shengguang was no different from Xia Shenfei's generation. However, outsiders did not know whether or not they would actually be able to obtain the origin item. In any case, Xia Shengguang was a candidate to become one of the four junior ancestors in the eyes of this generation, and there was an 80% to 90% chance that he would monopolize one of the junior ancestor planets. If Lu Yin's face under Yu Hao's disguise had excited the girls in the academy because of his looks, then Xia Shengguang had similarly excited them because of his strength. They had two completely different views. However, in the end, a pretty face was far from being able to compare to a powerful junior ancestor. Mr. Hao Yu, can you explain the rumors about you and Mr. Wen? Xia Shengguang's voice was so loud that it spread all around the lake. Lu Yin's lecture was only in one corner of the lake. The entire lake was huge and countless students were gathered here. Some were fishing, some were resting, and some were cultivating. Xia Shengguang's words attracted everyone's attention. Lu Yin calmly replied, "Student Xia Shengguang, I don't have anything to explain. The innocent will know their innocence. Blindly emphasizing these rumors will only damage Mr. Wen's reputation. Is that something you want to see?" Xia Shengguang raised his head. "Then apologize. You're the one who damaged her reputation." Lu Yin was using Yu Hao's face and his identity as a teacher, so he was basically a different person. His temper had also changed, and he did not care about anyone's provocation. However, that did not mean that he was completely infuriated. This Xia Shengguang had pissed him off, and if not for his disguise, he would have slapped the guy until he couldn't find his bearings. Chapter 2195. Zhou Xian stood up and scolded, "Xia Shengguang, don't disturb teacher's class. Are you crazy? Isn't it just a rumor? Moreover, this is between Mr. Hao Yu and Mr. Wen. What does it have to do with you? I've heard of people picking up money, but I've never heard of people picking up trouble. If you have the ability, then go ahead and scold them." Xia Shengguang coldly looked at Zhou Xian and said, "For the sake of the Zhou family, I can pretend that I didn't hear what you said. Even if Zhou Sanyang were here, she wouldn't dare to speak to me like that. Mind your own business." Nong Xinyang put her hands on her hips, looking like she wasn't afraid of him. What are you bragging about? My sister will kill you with a hoe. Qing Feng stood up. Xia Shengguang, please don't disturb the teacher's class. Xia Shengguang glanced at Qing Feng. I don't like talking to trash. If you have the ability to last 10 moves against me, I'll look you in the eye. Qing Feng clenched his fists. With his status, he would be highly valued wherever he went. His cultivation talent was also extremely high. Otherwise, he would not have been chosen by half-martial ancestor Qing Chen. However, compared to Xia Shengguang, he was indeed far inferior. Even though Qing Chen was a half-martial ancestor, his foundation could not be compared to the Xia clan. When Lu Yin had first arrived at Xian Academy, he had been in high spirits and believed that he was at the top of his generation. How many of his peers had actually reached the enlightened realm? However, after exchanging blows with Xia Shengguang and Wang Xiaofan, Lu Yin finally recognized the reality of the situation. They were both enlighters, and although they seemed to be on par with each other, their true strength was far from each other. This was also the reason why he was in a hurry to learn about domains. He didn't want to fall too far behind. Xia Shengguang looked at Lu Yin. Either apologize or accept my challenge. As an envoy, if you don't even dare to accept the challenge of an enlightened student, then what kind of mentor are you? Bai Nan sneered. Mr. Haoyu, you didn't dare to accept the challenge of the 18 horizontal formations, but now you don't even dare to accept the challenge of a student? Nong Xinyang scolded. Cut the crap. Mr. Haoyu is a scholar and a lockbreaker, not a battle maniac. Why would he fight with you? Xia Shengguang stared coldly at Lu Yin. Lu Yin clasped his hands behind his back. I'm not good at fighting. I told you before. Xia Shengguang was disdainful and turned to leave. Trash. Many students were disappointed. Even Nong Xinyang, who supported Lu Yin, felt a little disappointed at this moment. This wasn't a matter of whether one was good at it or not. If this person didn't even have the courage to fight, how could he teach his students? Previously, a student had asked, since Mr. Haoyu is a formation master of Din, why doesn't he go to the battlefield on the other side? At that time, many people had said that they were afraid of death, especially by Nan's group. Now it seemed that perhaps it was true. However, Lu Yin continued, even though I'm not good at fighting, I'm good at sourcebox arrays. Xia Shengguang turned around to look at Lu Yin. Lu Yin asked, did you just say that Qing Feng couldn't even withstand 10 moves from you? Why don't we do this? I'll set up a sourcebox array for him. Don't worry, I won't use a sourcebox with too much killing intent. I'll just use a supportive sourcebox array. If he can use it to last 10 moves against you, no 50 moves against you, then we'll consider it my win. How about that? If he can't hold on, you win. I'll do whatever you say. Xia Shengguang looked at Qing Feng in astonishment, and Qing Feng looked back at Xia Shengguang in astonishment. He wouldn't even be able to last 10 moves, let alone 50. Although he had some comprehension of his domain, that was only comprehension, not mastery. The difference between him and Xia Shengguang was too great, and he couldn't even withstand the divine martial cheese force alone. How could he possibly last 50 moves? Xia Shengguang laughed. Do you have confidence in this piece of trash or in yourself? Let me tell you, if I get serious, he won't even last 3 moves, let alone 10. That's the difference between Xinwu Plain and a wandering cultivator. The difference. So you accept? Lu Yin countered. Xia Shengguang sneered. Fine, I accept. There's no need for 50 moves, just 10. As long as he can last 10 moves, I'll admit defeat. Lu Yin looked at Qing Feng. Fellow student, are you willing to help me? Qing Feng hesitated. Nong Xinyang grew anxious. Qing Feng, are you a man or not? Even if you don't have Mr. Haoyu's sourcebox array, you wouldn't dare to fight Xia Shengguang? Where did your spirit go? Qing Feng looked up at Lu Yin. I'm not afraid of a fight, but I don't want to implicate Mr. Lu Yin raised a hand and star energy gathered around Qing Feng's body. He then set up a modified sourcebox array, the flow diversion diagram. He had once used the flow diversion diagram sourcebox array under the alias of Long 7, but he had been afraid of being recognized, so he had changed it slightly. Don't worry, you can definitely do it. Qing Feng took a deep breath and nodded. He then looked at Xia Shengguang. Come. The surrounding students retreated and watched in anticipation. They had not expected to see such a battle in class. Although Qing Feng was far from Xia Shengguang's level, That was only because Xiaoxinguang was too freakish. Excluding those who were on the same level as Xiaoxinguang, Qingfeng was definitely the strongest. There was going to be a good show. More students gathered around the lake, and they had all heard Xiaoxinguang's words. All of them were especially excited. The battle was taking place above the lake. Qingfeng was confused as he looked at the flow diversion diagram that surrounded his body. This was too simple, and he felt that this sourcebox array would shatter at the slightest touch. How could it block Xiaoxinguang's divine martial qi? Not only did Qingfeng think this way, but Xiaoxinguang and the other students who had come to watch the show were also thinking the same thing. Xiaoxinguang sneered. Lu Yin was just pretending to be mysterious. He understood Lu Yin's intentions. Lu Yin wanted to use Qingfeng as a scapegoat. No matter what, as long as Qingfeng accepted the challenge, Xiaoxinguang could withdraw from the battle. Even if Qingfeng lost, it would be Qingfeng losing face, not Xiaoxinguang. At most, Xiaoxinguang would make Qingfeng apologize to Wen Zhao, which was something that Qingfeng should have done. This person was truly sinister. Xiaoxinguang had guessed it, but he had not said anything. Bai Nan had, and many people had guessed it as well. Lu Yin's image in the hearts of many students instantly fell, including the girls. You're quite unlucky. Just treat this as a lesson, Xiaoxinguang said coldly. He raised a hand and an invisible stream of air fluttered out like a ribbon. He raised his hand and aimed it at Qingfeng. He wanted to end this as quickly as possible. The faster it ended, the more humiliated Hao Yu would be. Bai Nan had already announced Xiaoxinguang's intentions, so Hao Yu would only lose even more face. Qingfeng's gaze turned cold and he quickly dodged the divine martial qi. However, Xiaoxinguang had already anticipated this, and he suddenly changed directions with his palm. The divine martial qi tore through the void and slammed into Qingfeng's body. Qingfeng raised a hand and used the profound water diagram. As soon as he spoke, the water in front of him transformed into a dreamy world of mountains and rivers that attempted to block the divine martial qi. However, Qingfeng had underestimated the divine martial qi, as it was the ultimate power of the divine martial plane. It was tyrannical and destructive, so how could a single technique block it? The divine martial qi directly shattered Qingfeng's profound water diagram. Fortunately, the profound water diagram was not completely useless, and it still managed to block a bit of the attack, allowing Qingfeng to dodge. Xiaoxinguang's lips curled up and a long blade appeared in his hand. He took a step forward, and the divine martial qi wrapped around the blade as he slashed at Qingfeng. Do you still remember this move? Qingfeng's eyes narrowed. He had challenged Xiaoxinguang before and he had been defeated by this very move. However, Xiaoxinguang had been sixth when he had used this move. Xiaoxinguang had used his second move, and it was clear that he wanted to end the battle quickly. Many students felt their hearts skip a beat. Many of them were biased towards Qingfeng, as he was an upright and passionate person who was willing to help others. Domain. Qingfeng stared fixedly at Xiaoxinguang's blade. Suddenly he heard Lu Yin's voice in his ear. Domain. Lightning flashed through his mind, and the experience of comprehending Mr. Tang's empty god's domain surfaced once again. He watched Xiaoxinguang's blade descend, watched the divine martial qi break through everything, and saw the void being torn apart. He thought of 4 words, turning space into water. Xiaoxinguang was certain that he could defeat Qingfeng as he had done so before. In such a short amount of time, Qingfeng had not been able to bridge the gap between the two of them. However, the blade still missed and Qingfeng dodged like a fish. Xiaoxinguang was in disbelief. You. Qingfeng dodged Xiaoxinguang's blade and reached out. Lightning flashed as it transformed into Lei Ren and slashed at Xiaoxinguang from an unbelievable angle. His attack style had changed. Xiaoxinguang watched Lei Ren pierce through the void and hurriedly dodged. However, this attack shocked him as he had not been able to completely avoid it. The angle and arc of Lei Ren's slash were too strange, as it seemed to have cut through the water rather than the void. It was a very strange feeling, so strange that Xiaoxinguang felt as if he was facing someone else instead of Qingfeng. Beside the lake, a group of students stared blankly. What were they seeing? Xiaoxinguang was bleeding? He was injured. Qingfeng held Lei Ren in his hand. This was his innate gift, and he had borrowed his master's enigmatic water diagrams technique to increase his innate gift's destructive power. He had believed that he could fight against any expert of his generation, but after entering Xian Academy and challenging Xia Shengguang and Wang Xiaofan, his pride had disappeared. Now his lost pride had returned, and it was not impossible for him to surpass them. At the very least, Xia Shengguang had been injured. Lu Yin was astonished. Qing Feng's innate gift in the field of domains was not bad. Everyone had a different understanding of space, and Qing Feng's comprehension had piqued Lu Yin's curiosity. No wonder Mr. Tang had praised him that night. Xia Shengguang looked at the blood flowing from his arm, and his initial disdain and indifference disappeared. His face sank and he looked up at Qing Feng. "You're not bad." Qing Feng gripped Lei Ren tightly and lightning flashed. "Continue." Xia Shengguang touched his injured arm. His fingers were stained with blood. "I underestimated you, but it's over now. Be careful of your own life." He raised his long blade and slashed horizontally. His blade was wrapped in divine martial qi and it shattered the void. Qing Feng saw through the void and hurriedly dodged. Suddenly, a similar blade appeared behind him and he instinctively dodged. In front of him, Xia Shengguang was right in front of him, and Xia Shengguang's raised blade viciously slashed down with divine martial force. Beside the lake, many people went pale. It was over. Qing Feng looked at the blade descending from above his head and he dodged at the critical moment. However, even though he had avoided the blade, he could not avoid the divine martial force, nor could he avoid the other blade that had mysteriously appeared out of nowhere from Xia Shengguang. The blade and the divine martial force landed on his body at the same time. Xia Shengguang was confident that this blade was over and he had not held back. Not only was it over, but Qing Feng would also pay the price for his previous attack. Xia Shengguang was from the Xia family and he was from the divine martial plane. He had the greatest inheritance, and no matter what Qing Feng had learned, it could not compare to Xia Shengguang's. Qing Feng was unable to dodge, and the blade and the divine martial force landed solidly on his body. The lake exploded and a terrifying force swept out in all directions, causing the void to distort. The lake water rose into the sky and then fell back down like rain. Everyone looked at the lake wanting to know the result.